We're in with Mauler and the drinker, getting trashed with the web screen thinkers. A cheap night cause I'm feeling kinda thrifty, gonna send back a beers and a bottle of whiskey. Hop up the cork, have a glass of wine, as they'll say, I'll be fine. Trouble walking in a straight line, but pour me a Pinot Noir. It's open bar with our hosts, Mauler and the critical drinker.
All right, that is our cue. It's been a while since we've done this. It's great to be back. Hello.
It's been too long. It's been like it was last year. 2 weeks.
Yeah, 2 entire weeks. It's been a yawning gap in my life. But hey, I had to go off to Comic-Con in Atlanta and had a blast there. And some dude gave me this fucking sweet bomber jacket with Critical Drinker stuff all over it. So I'm wearing it in his honor. Well, until it gets too sweaty and I have to take it off.
Yeah, there's a queue of people outside when the doors open. They just poured in. It's like, oh, this is what you do when you starve the world of alcohol for 2 weeks. Everything is hell.
Yeah. I actually had to go a couple of days once I got back of not drinking alcohol before I did this live stream because it was all throughout the day. Because, you know, I was meeting people all day and they were bringing me booze and stuff. And I was like, well, it'd be rude not to drink it. So, yeah, it was great. I even did shots with a charming young lady. So what can I say? It was a good weekend.
Beautiful.
But hey ho, we're here and it's open bar number 39. So welcome everyone except you, Brian. I'm watching you.
Yeah.
Anyway, I freaked out all the Brians that are in the audience there. Statistically, there must be at least 1 or 2, I guess.
Oh yeah.
But hey, let's. Well, we've got a bunch of stuff that we've got to discuss tonight. It's been an eventful week in the world of entertainment, so we should bring in our panel for tonight. What do you reckon?
Yeah, let's do it.
Alrighty, we've got making his return to the open bar, Little Platoon.
Good
Hello.
evening.
It is a pleasure to have you back as always.
It's a pleasure to be here. As soon as the bar opens, I'm reliably going to be here. So thank you for having me.
It's still perfect. Like the two of us, like, oh, hey, how you doing? You're like, hello, gentlemen. Good evening.
Yeah.
It'll take me a bottle of whiskey to get sort of slurry, I think. So, and I had one of those last night. So I'm relaxing and sipping on slowly on expensive whiskey as opposed to I'm only drinking this to get absolutely smashed like bells, which is horrible. But it does a job.
I'm Scottish, so I'm all about the quick, cheap, and efficient option for getting drunk as possible, as quickly as possible.
Naturally.
Well, I do like that your avatar has just got a glass of like wine or brandy or whatever in his hand, just ready to go.
Cheers.
It's gonna
Cheers
get
to you, man.
tiring to hold that, you know. I'm just saying.
I know, but once you've drunk enough, you go numb anyway. So you know it ceases to be difficult.
Yeah, it's a good arm workout as well, you know.
It's like a
one arm will
clappy-
just be like super muscular.
This is actually my equivalent of lifting. So yeah, that's all I do for exercise.
Alrighty, and the other member of our panel tonight is Disparu. Hello, sir.
Hello. Yes, just fresh off a D&D stream where I watched Water Black Garrett get vaporized in front of my eyes. That was an interesting thing. This is actually the second time that
Are we gonna
thought
top
I
that?
joined this stream.
Rest in peace.
It was a really interesting conversation. It's like, we're going to go live now. It's like, oh, okay, sorry. It was interesting.
Yeah, but like Disparu came in like full on like discussion mode. It's like, yeah, we're not live.
It was
mate.
really good. I was like, I'm surprised you opened with this, but this is great to go. Yeah, just finished off a bottle of whiskey myself. But you know, there's always more where that comes from.
It's always
That's
room
why
for
I
more
think-
bottles.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like,
The
no,
worry
what
now
I-
is like we had great banter behind the scenes, and now the rest of the stream's going to be totally shit now.
Yeah. it's
Well,
okay.
you know, that's just what happens when you talk about the Mandalorian.
Yeah.
I should
Well.
probably say that when I was 5 hours into my Mandalorian video, which I actually think is one of my more entertaining videos, I was really pleased with how it came out. I lost 2 subscribers overall over the first 5 hours of the video.
What, because you were mean
I-
to Mando?
No, because I opened it saying this show is basically a merchandising operation for Disney. Maybe we should turn Baby Yoda into a football because every time he appears on screen, I want to drop kick him in the face. Apparently, really didn't. Not a lot. No, people
Lot-
really like Baby Yoda. I should have realized that.
A
And,
lot of Grogu fans out there. What can I say?
Yeah, the most
did you-
base part of the entire episode for me is when the assassin droid wanted to completely annihilate him off the face of the earth. So you know, at least Disney represent all positions.
Did you review seasons 1 and 2, or like was this
I didn't have a channel during Mandalorian season 1 and 2.
Well, it's just funny because back when you remember this, Trinket, when season 2 was airing, a lot of people were very in favor of the show, except for EFAP, and we got in trouble for it. But nowadays, looks like it's turned, and people are happy to shit all over the Mandalorian, which I prefer this world. This is a more fun world.
Do you think,
by the way,
in some way, like Book of Boba Fett and Obi-Wan Kenobi somehow tainted Mandalorian as well? It's like they took the goggles off.
Disro, I've seen your video. It was very good. I recommend everyone check it out. Something you said, which I very much enjoyed, was, do you recommend this? Like, well, if you liked season 1 and 2, you'll like this, which is true. It is same shit. I don't know why people didn't notice properly until now. But you're right. Boba Fett and Kenobi ripped it off, the veil. It's not there anymore.
I always thought one of my problems with certainly this episode is that it actually falls even by the Mandalorian's own not especially high standards. So it's not actually exactly the same. If anything, it's worse just by the standards the show set for itself.
I don't know.
I'll tell you, if they ever come to adapt the Mandalorian into a video game, they will have to put in absolutely zero work because the entire plot is just the structure of a video game. This whole first episode was like, it's like we've been given a big overarching quest that's going to occupy us for this season. You know, he's got to redeem himself, so he has to get to the waters of life beneath the mines of Mandalore in order to redeem himself. I don't know how he's going to prove that he went there. He could just get some water in a jug or something, but whatever. In order to do that, he has to go to a friend and get like a...
he has to take a selfie there.
IS-11 back online, or is it IG-11? Sorry,
IG-11.
IG-11. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's self-detonated in a pool of lava, so
it's
I don't know how there's any left. But it doesn't have a circuit board, so he has to go somewhere else to get the circuit board to repair the droid that he can then take with him to go to Mandalore to get underneath the mines and go into the waters of life. That's the plot of the episodes. It's just a fucking video game. This isn't storytelling.
It's never been plot in Mando. It's always been shit. Because this is the thing. Like, I would really push that this is not a downgrade from seasons. I would say definitely not from season 2, but maybe I'll give season 1 that it was like literally a sliver better. But I'm not even feeling that generous, to be honest with you. We remember season 2, right? That's the season where they get chased by the stormtroopers who blow themselves up. There's that scene where he's shot like 1,000,000 times, but his armor just deflects every single shot, and so it's like no stakes in the action ever. It's the I don't even want to like. It was such a joke that season.
It was that episode, right, where his spaceship gets dismantled by Jawas, and he goes to the Jawas to get all the parts back, and they're like, "Well, if we're going to give them back to you, you have to give this egg to us. Like, how do I get the egg? Well, you have to kill this beast. Kill the beast, get the egg, get the parts, fix the spaceship, be on your way." That's the structure of the storytelling here, and it worked in season 1 to some extent because it was simplistic and it was easy and it was low level stuff. Just a character doing a little adventure.
I mean, context is very important as well, in the sense that when the first season comes along, you've just come off the back of a catastrophically unsuccessful sequel trilogy.
Yes.
People are very, very sick of these people with grand narratives and grand pretensions toward grand narratives who tell massive epoch-defining stories that suck. And just going back to something very, very basic, which is just kind of Clint Eastwood in armor going for a couple of standalone adventures and just seeing a bit more of the galaxy was... I mean, yeah, if you actually want story from a show, it's probably not the show to go for. But if you want to get away from sort of the meta of the sequel trilogy, then I can see why season 1 of The Mandalorian got as popular and as successful as it did. But it's one thing to have sort of an intriguing premise with a cool character design and a nice little MacGuffin in Baby Yoda for your starting point, but then you actually have to go somewhere with it. And if it becomes unexpectedly popular as it did, you do then need to start thinking, well, how am I going to tie this into the galaxy as a whole? Where am I actually telling a story here, and what does the story lead to? And that's where they seem to have had no ideas at all. So that goes well.
They did have ideas, though, and their ideas were Baby Yoda, which for some reason has just become merchandising operation number 1 for Disney. It's the only thing that was successful at The Mandalorian. It's the only thing they clearly made money off. That's why most of this episode was told from his perspective. Like, for absolutely no... This is a guy who can't even talk. And yet it focused on him. Every 3 seconds, it's like, oh, let's get his perspective on this. Oh, now he's hugging something. Let's get his perspective on this. There are entire scenes like that mechanic scene, which I think were only created specifically to show Baby Yoda doing something to make he's hugging
No, you know what it
to
is?
buy more toys.
You know what it is? It's like you've just got two characters in a room exchanging dialogue necessary to move the plot on. It's too boring. We need something to like make people go or make them laugh or something. Let's show Baby Yoda using the Force to pick up an M&M or try and eat Babu Frick, who's trying to repair this IG-11 droid. Like it's just stuff like that.
Now this is the Game of Thrones example. Game of Thrones did it, but they set it in a brothel. Whereas this, it's just using Baby Yoda instead of that to appeal to a certain group of people rather than actually having something entertaining going on. They're distracted by something else. The issue with in Season 2, Baby Yoda literally ate somebody's babies in front of her. And they had the character hugging the jar of babies. It's like, this is the last group of babies I'm ever going to have. And he's eating them. And at no point did the mother try to stop him,
It's cute because he's a kid.
It's not.
But then
it's
you get to the
horrific.
then you get to the book of Boba Fett, and then Luke is like, well, you, who we've just been told repeatedly is a child who has no cognition whatsoever, you have this profound choice to make about your life future now. Are you going to do away with your sort of foster father and join the Jedi, or are you going to abandon this entire religion and define your life going forward by your sort of shacking up with the Mandalorian? Which is a decision you wouldn't give to a character with the characterization of Grogu as child, because that's just impossible. But the show, even in episode 3, makes this mistake as well. It can't decide how mature an adult it wants Baby Yoda to be. So in the one place, they defend him grabbing the Babu Frick thing because he's just a kid. But then later on, because they need exposition, Mando talks to him, explains cockpit mechanics and all the rest of that stuff. And then it's like, well, why are he doing this? How old is this child? Is it a child anymore?
50.
I don't know.
It ate eggs.
Baby
He's
Yoda
50
is
years
50.
old. Yeah, like if you're
Disparu's
50 years old,
reference.
you should have some cognition about the world around you. And thank you, Disparu, because now I've got the horrifying image of a brothel full of Baby Yodas in my head.
Just eating babies. But by this point, it already says, like, I read the wiki, because I'm like, I'm sure he's really actually quite old by this point. He's not a baby. And when I went to read the wiki, it was like, well, actually, before Mando even met him, and I'd rather we just gave him a name at this point by than calling him just Mando or the Mandalorian. But either way,
Din Djarin in there.
he's actually been trained by multiple Jedi Masters. Is specifically what it writes. He's been trained by multiple Jedi Masters before Mando even met him. But he can't walk. So what did they train him in? Like, how is it even possible to train
You
him?
can use the Force, buddy.
Yeah, but either he can
Sometimes.
use the Force and he can learn things and do things and like move forwards into the future, or he's like a baby that can't even walk and needs perfect protection at all times.
And also,
this is
Dean
perfect.
Favreau,
You say he
Favreau
can't
came out
walk,
this
right?
week, didn't he? And said that he'd actually spent 2 years training with Luke.
He said
So
that was
all
a misspeak. He came
was
out
it a
and said
misspeak?
he meant 2 years out of universe, not in universe. But on the point of you said he can't walk and you're referencing the episode where he eats the babies. I've just pulled this up, Drinker. If you could share the screen, this fucking part kills
His
me
walking
every time I
speed
see it.
annoys
It's
me.
not just that. Do you remember this part?
I didn't. I didn't. But that is entirely
I don't
different to the
remember
walking
that.
speed he does when he forges it. By the way, the forging of that helmet, which turns it into more bent than flat metal again. There is
literally on
multiple
fucking
scenes in this
wheels.
episode where there's even a scene which I cut from my video, but there's a scene where Mando walks backwards and then it goes and walks backwards again in a different camera angle. The editor had no idea which camera he was even using for his edits during this entire episode.
I just wanted to leave that on an endless loop throughout the whole show.
Oh, it's
That is how
fucking
quickly
great.
he can move when he's trying to get away from the mother whose babies he just ate.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
he is
50 years
capable of
old.
it.
I mean, to be fair, he does walk like that. It just needs a Zimmer frame and he would have been perfect.
I think this is an interesting example of. Oh shit!
Oh, I
Why
offended
have we lost
Mauler.
Mauler?
Yeah, I offended him. Like the walking speed of Yoda is
Come
like,
back,
no.
come back, Mauler, come back.
That's a step too far.
Yeah, like I think that's an example of where you clearly could have used some kind of CGI to make that movement more natural. Instead, they have this little radio controlled Grogu that they can just like move across the floor. It's just.
But they
Not
don't
good.
care
I
about
lost it.
realism
So
in any
quickly
other
done.
aspect.
They
Like
could've
that
just cut
whole
that part.
crocodile fight at the start. Like,
Oh yeah.
What was the
okay,
point in that?
you are so tiny. Like, you're about this big compared to a crocodile, which is like this big, and you decide to attach ropes to him? Why?
That
What-
shit.
like,
every decision.
what is the
they
worst
make
thing
was
that...
stupid
No,
as
no, but seriously, what is
Why
the
would
worst
they
thing that
fight
crocodile
it?
could do? Leave? You want him to leave? He's attacking you. You're like, no, I'm going to try and hold him here.
you just came out of a big cave, right? Which was presumably goes back into the mountainside of Fairways. It's not. The crocodile is too big to fit into that
Can't
cave.
fit, yeah.
Why do you
Yeah.
need to fucking fight it? Just run
Yeah.
away from it.
Well, they send all the children into the cave. It's like, no, you too, adults.
Yeah,
Everyone
this isn't a
gotta
battle
go.
that you need to win.
We
It's
never
just a fucking
retreat.
animal.
No, this is war, Drinker. They gotta get this fucking.
But they
crocodile.
attach himself
any
to them.
given. Oh yeah, the grappling hook thing is just absolutely insane. I mean, obviously knee rockets would be
death
way more
rolls.
effective, but like you can pause any given scene there, and you just see a load of Mandalorians, highly trained, specialized fighter Mandalorians, standing about 2 foot away from a giant crocodile with their ranged weapons, shooting at it. Just fly off,
That does
run
nothing.
away,
I
stand
just-
back,
yeah.
just do something.
No, they need
You know
the
what pisses me
command
off
to
as well when
fly.
you've got like an obvious CGI fight scene like this where people, like dozens of people are blasting away at this thing and it causes no visible damage to it anywhere. It's like, what's the point in this? You might as well just have a health bar above it, like,
That's the
you know,
thing, man.
just slowly
The-
ticking down.
You have all this effort in the entire action scene, and they don't even beat it. It's Mando that saves them with his spaceship. Like, they suck.
The
What a
worst
horrible
part of the,
representation for Mandalorians.
the worst part of the entire scene for me is when you've got like the head honcho, the person that's just turned flat armor into curved armor back to flat armor again, and she picks up 2 axes and she runs at it. And I was fully
Yeah.
expecting like a Legolas scene where she goes up, starts caving in
Yeah.
its skull or something. I was like, this is going to be really impressive. No, she runs past it, which has a cut with water going over the front, so you don't realize
She
she's running across the
slides underneath it. She does
Yeah.
a slide tackle.
Well, exactly. The volume runs out, right? So you've got to wave water over the screen so she can run past the same piece of volume again, and then picks up a guy from the water. I'm like, is this meant to be impressive? You've just picked up a guy from what? Couldn't he have stood on his own? He's a Mandalorian. Like, what on earth are you doing?
Also,
Well, if she
speaking
was
of-
just going to save someone, why the hell did she take her hammer? What was the point? Wait,
2
what did she
hammers.
need?
It's like,
She has to put. Remember, she's got one in each hand. Then she has to put them into one hand so that she has the other hand free to pick up the guy. It's like, why did you take them in the
She
first place?
loves her forge hammers and she doesn't want to let them go more.
She's got such a cartoony run when she heads toward him too. I'm
Oh,
just looking at her
she-
now.
Well, you can tell she's
Fully
not actually
uses-
running through water. Like, it feels like it's so animated.
It's the Tom Cruise run she uses with like a full axis.
Yeah, you know
Goes
what?
straight forward.
Well, I'll see if I can
and
get
they put explosives on top of the put it in its mouth. It's like its mouth is open all the time. Just lob grenades. Do something.
yeah,
Like,
they never
these are
played Knights
game
of the Old
mechanics that
Republic,
people
apparently.
use.
I love the fact as well that it doesn't look like an alien or anything. It's literally just a fucking massive crocodile.
Well, if you compare it to
that's all it
the
is.
concept design
Even
at the
death.
end, which the concept art at the end of these episodes is usually the best bit of any of these episodes. But if you compare the creature design from the concept art at the end to the one we actually got, the concept version actually looks much better. I mean, it is a little bit kind of like a demon turtle as opposed to just crocodile but big. But I don't really know why they ditched that, given that it would have been better. I've still been trying to figure out how they can start a scene with a child standing in water up to his knees, and the 80-foot tall crocodile is fully submerged until it reaches child standing up to his knees in water. Like, how big is the drop off in the water depth that this huge thing can exist completely submerged right behind a child who's not?
Don't go to the deep end.
It's probably the same time to like the moment he's next to her and she grabs him and throws him. He's immediately falling, but this crocodile comes up, roars into the air. You cut back to the kid's still falling over 4 seconds later. That guy will have run about 20 meters, still just falling. I don't know if anyone's ever seen the clip of the drunk guy, which is just staggering to the end. Because someone's pushed him, he can't regain balance, but falls about 30 meters over from where he pushed. That's the only clip I had in mind for the entire thing.
That was probably me.
Yeah, you may have been.
Imagine being
yeah.
Mando though, arriving at this planet and being like, "Oh, they're fighting a giant crocodile, huh?" I guess I'll help.
This is the question. It's like, okay, the opening scene of a season should set up something, right? Some event that has some significance to the rest of the season. That crocodile, that all those people there, apart from the Hammer Lady, none of that will have any bearing on anything that happens from this point going forward. It was just, let's have a cheap action scene that's unexpected, gives us a little bit of,
You'll fight the crocodile's
explosions.
brother at the end. It'll be very relevant. Revenge
Well,
brother.
who knows?
Well, the problem is it can't. Well, it struggled to set anything up because its setup took place in a different series. So the natural beginning of this arc is, of course, the Mando episodes in the Book of Boba Fett. All he's doing in going to this planet to fight the crocodile to meet the armorer is to remind people, or to tell them, if they had any sense and didn't watch Boba Fett, what the premise of that was, which is that he's been excommunicated for taking his helmet off. But we already know that because we did suffer through the Book of Boba Fett. The show just had to redo that.
I was on Gary's stream yesterday, and we were all laughing at the fact that, yes, as people who've seen Book of Boba Fett, why did we see this scene again? This scene is in Book of Boba Fett. Not the same scene, but it's a repeated scene. But even a lot of the dialogue feels very fucking similar. And it's like, wow, you didn't even care, did you? And I saw someone in chat, so it's worth us mentioning this. Yes, it is strange that he gets rid of Grogu at the end of Grogu at the end of season 2. And yet it's back with Grogu at the beginning of season 3. What's going on? It's like, well, there was a fucking DLC you need to go and check out that basically reset the whole Mandalorian.
The episode begins with flashbacks, but the flashbacks don't cover events that people don't actually have a chance of having known. So they just goes back to the IG droid because that's the mission, the side quest in this episode. If you're going to begin an episode with your little recap, might it have been an idea to recap important stuff that happened in the Book of Boba Fett rather than, hey, this side character, remember him? Well, he's back now somehow.
I also don't understand. I don't understand the fucking side quest aspect of this as well. Where it's like, okay, we need IG-11.
Oh, it's so stupid.
Wait, let me just start this right. It would be like if I went to Trafalgar Square or something in London, and there was a statue of Winston Churchill, but it was made partially from his actual fucking corpse. Like that's,
no, that was even worse.
IG-11 is just like up there, and it's like bits of him that they recovered from apparently like detonating a fucking thermonuclear reactor while you're in a giant like pool of lava. There's still like all your vital systems will survive. It's
they never tried to fix him.
Returned.
But yeah, like he's Mando's decision is like, I need IG-11. Nobody else in the galaxy will do for this quest. This fucking droid is the only thing that can help me out here.
What do you think I could
not
trust?
Cara Dune, not Grief Karga, nobody. Just fucking him. Not even Boba Fett can help me.
Yeah, wouldn't the obvious choice have been Boba Fett? Why is he like...
Well, it would have been Cara Dune, really. I would have taken her with me, but it's like,
I love the way that they dispense with her in the
she's been conveniently written out.
She gets one sentence.
Yeah.
But
she's in the special forces now.
Well, as you said, she's lucky she didn't get the whole, like, she accidentally shot herself in the face. Oh, well.
She died on the way back to her home planet. Oh, what can you do?
I was genuinely impressed that they didn't humiliate her, because that's what I was expecting. I
Do you
think
think there's an element of,
fall
like,
over a memory.
do you think there's an element of leaving the door open?
No.
No, I don't.
I think they didn't want to poke the bear that they knew would be coming for them.
Just
if they
just
humiliated
do it cleanly, because they could easily have said, like, turns out she was Empire affiliated and we killed her. Like, oh god, or something. But yeah,
I guarantee in some kind of meeting there was a fight over what they were going to do to her, and there were definitely going to be people that were like, no, we need to humiliate her. We need this. We were like, no, let's just put down the past, move past it, leave it alone, go on into the future, and make it the next series. I can't even remember what I was going to say. Or, like, people in the chat, it's like, Disbrew wants to talk. It's like, yeah, because like I've never pitched myself as anything other than King Normie. I watched Mandalorian season 2 for this season, and it's like, oh yeah, you need to watch Boba Fett as well. I never watched Boba Fett. Boba Fett was on the same time as Wheel of Time, and I watched Wheel of Time, not Boba Fett, and so I came back and was like, wait, why's he got a new ship? Why's Grogu with him? This doesn't make any sense.
You may feel it's you've lost the moment to do it, but considering your bread and butter right now, the way you make your videos, I think Book of Boba Fett might be worth looking into. You might want just you will lose your mind like in terms of the shit they get up to in it.
I know we did.
I understand. Yeah, the algorithm. The algorithm. It's like nobody cares anime. That's the problem.
I guess so, but I'd like to see you watch Book of Boba Fett. It'd be funny.
Hey, I want to see your reaction to the Vespa scene. Like, honestly, you will.
Oh, it's so full of such great memories. Yeah, you really do need to watch it. It's iconic.
Help me understand though this, right? Like, I don't fully understand how this chain of events occurred in this episode. So, he goes. He wants to retrieve the remains of IG-11 so that he can rebuild him. It goes nuts and tries to kill Grogu, so they drop a fucking statue on his head to crush it. But still, he's determined to rebuild this thing despite all of this, and apparently it's still salvageable. They just need one memory board, and so like he needs to go someplace to get it. Why does he go to Bo-Katan to get that memory board? Like, why does he go there?
Why didn't he go there first?
Was he going there because he was asking her to join him on his fun little adventure or something?
I don't know. Did he want
so.
her help going to a place to find the
Well,
memory board so he can
I
then
think he
go on his
wanted
bigger
her help
quest?
for the coordinates of where the mines were located in the first place.
From what I've heard, she's going to be his partner throughout this season. Yeah, I know.
Right.
The issue that I
So-
have is if he wanted the droid because it was the droid that he could trust. When you replace his memory banks, he's now a new person. He's a fresh droid with no kind of memories, so he might as well have gone anything. But
What about
when
the
they
actual humans that he's friends with that have risked their lives for him? Like, why not take some of them?
I can understand a world or a future where the AI droids are actually better than the humans. Like, they can aim better, they don't miss more. Anyone that's played an FPS knows that something that's aimbotting is better than you are, you know? So I can understand that from a fighting perspective, even if not a strategic one. But the issue that I have is that even if you trust that droid, it's not that droid anymore. It's a new fresh one, so anything would happen. And the only... Like, this was like... Do you want a... give me a chance to fix it, is what Mandalorian said. And what did he do to try and fix this? Well, he hooked up to a battery pack.
Power.
Are you telling me
Have
that
you
no one else
tried
found that
turning it
droid and
on?
were like, this droid saved our entire planet? Maybe we should try
We
and
can
fix him a
we
bit,
can
you know?
rebuild him.
Maybe we can just hook him up
plug
to a
him
battery
in. That's
pack
all we
to
have
see
to
if his
do.
memory banks are intact. And it's like, no, I hooked him up to power. Okay, he's evil now. Why
be
did
fair,
nobody
this
else
group-
know that in the 4?
Do any of them
like-
know how to hotwire a droid? I don't think so. That's
Well, exactly. They hotwired him,
Mandalorian
hooked him up to
skill.
power, but
But
they didn't even
presumably-
bother that. They just put him as a statue.
Presumably, he's not the only droid of his type in the galaxy
Well, they
as
stopped
well.
making
There
him.
are
He might be the
others.
only
apparently.
good one.
They stopped making them, apparently.
Well, yeah, but like
Yeah.
you stopped making they stopped making fucking PlayStations like 20 years ago, but you can
No,
still
of
find
course.
them.
Absolutely, of course, they would have these parts to be. I mean, this was already highlighted. The fact that my brain nearly melted when he was like, "I can only have this droid because it's the only one I trust." Like, we'll have to wipe its memory. He's like, "Yeah, that's fine." It's like, what?
So it's
It's
like
like
any
how-
other droid then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How didn't that get like? Anyone bring that up to Mando? How that doesn't make any fucking sense at all.
Or,
And then
or
it's
just
like-
you know, you just take with you like 10 slightly lesser droids, you know, that are
There's
also
another-
like tasked to helping you.
There's another reason why you would never fucking pick that one, and it's because it's programmed on board with a chance that it might just remember its parameters of trying to kill your very specific child you're trying to protect. Like,
Which
this
would
is
be an
possibly
advantage.
one of the worst things you could do as a bodyguard. Why in the world are you picking this, you fucking idiot? Like, it's really hard to watch sometimes. You're just like, why are you so stupid? Why would you do this? You have so many other options, man.
All of this lore was nailed down in the Old Republic games. So I know that some people are like, well, maybe that's not canon. To me, anything that's created in the universe is canon unless you specifically go, we're ignoring this. We don't know why this thing exists. It shouldn't really have existed in the first
But
place.
that is what they did. And they did retcon all of the expanded universe as soon as they bought the property.
Yeah.
So it's officially it's legends now. It's not real. So yeah, all the Old Republic
timeline
stuff is gone.
something.
Even though you know you
That's
could've-
my
you could've
favorite
just-
Star Trek.
And
Star
then-
Yeah,
Wars,
just
My
Just wait.
favorite Star Trek.
Yeah, and then I don't know if you guys remember, but Kathleen Kennedy
Do I need
said,
to point you to the whiskey?
Kathleen Kennedy said about the difference between Star Wars and what was the other? She was comparing it with some of the franchises. I think in Marvel actually. She said Marvel has so much source material to be able to work with. Star Wars doesn't. It's
Oh,
like
God,
you killed all of it, you crazy witch. Why would you say that? Like,
burned it all.
you had all of the source material to work with. What the hell? That was funny as fuck as a quote. But someone was going to bring up, I don't know if everyone remembers this, they made a statue of the droid. They didn't make a statue for the guy who died in that episode. You remember the one that got killed when he was trying to protect stupid Grogu? The old man, he was voiced by Nick Nolte. Do you remember him? Anyone remember him?
There was a bunch of dumb stuff going on, and I think I blanked some of it from my mind.
I
He
actually
died
find
protecting
making
the
the
stupid
statue the
baby.
worst bit. Because they made the statue without even trying to revive the droid, because they only need to hook him up to power to work out whether they needed to or not. They didn't even try that. They found his corpse and just put him in the center of the city as a statue. So they didn't care
Who
about him at all.
found him as well? Like, where did they find him? He
Well,
blew
they
up
said he
inside a fucking
exploded.
volcano.
Yeah, they said they exploded, and they were lucky to find what they did. So they presumably just walked into the explosion. And,
Like,
but I
call me
still think it's
crazy,
like-
right? When a great hero dies, normally their physical remains are buried in the ground in a coffin, and like you make statues out of fucking, you know, concrete or rock or whatever. You carve them. You don't make the statues out of their body, out of their remains. It's so weird.
Even the
If you're
status as a
metal,
great
I think
hero
you
is
might.
questionable. I mean,
I'm
a
fine
great
with
hero
it.
to whom? As far
I
as
don't
I know, most
know.
of the planet didn't see the sacrifice or had nothing to do, no
I
stakes
think they
in
worked
this
backwards.
game.
I think They would have worked
Yeah.
backwards because it wouldn't
Why?
make
Why?
sense.
Yeah.
otherwise,
Why
right?
couldn't they? Yeah. Why couldn't they have just found him in a junkyard or something?
They,
It's like
they
we
wanted him to have
recovered this
access to
stuff.
him, and it's like, how do we make it so he's easily got access to him? And it's like, well, maybe, fuck it, maybe he's like the town hero, and they have a statue that's half made of his actual body. There you go, that solves that problem.
Why does
It
he
doesn't
even
make-
care? I can't. Like,
Okay,
this-
so-
season 1 I didn't watch
This
for a
isn't a
while.
world where
but
people
Baby
care
Yoda
about
didn't do
droids.
anything for them. So,
Remember, the droid is voiced by Taika Waititi, so I wonder if that's part of the.
oh no! Oh, I forgot. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and he gets these. So, I don't know. You get a little
I
bit cynical
didn't.
about all of this sometimes, you know.
Taika Waititi is rapidly becoming the worst thing to happen to Hollywood since fucking Ryan Johnson
Hey,
and J.J.
he-
Abrams.
We called fucking EFAB called this shit out in season 1. He made it canonical that stormtroopers cannot aim, and everyone laughed and loved it. Why did you like that? That was a horrible
Yeah.
decision by Taika.
You fucking idiots! You
Jojo
stop
Rabbit
liking
was
bad
fine. It's
things.
Like, I accept Jojo Rabbit's great, okay, I do, but you know, he made other things too.
It's because it's an easy joke. It's a meme that turned into a joke,
Oh,
which should
dude.
never become canon.
That's what I mean. Making it canon is horrific. Fucking having stormtroopers that can kill someone. It's just like I feel sad about it because like why should I ever care when they're on the screen? They're clowns. You remember the Boba Fett episode in season 2 of Mandalorian where he just kills them all one by one because all of them can't shoot anything. They're just waddling around.
Yeah.
But that's the same in this. The pirates at the end, they can't hit anything, and then he just annihilates them all one by one, and until the point where he happens to come up behind them and he hits one of them perfectly, and then suddenly just starts missing all of a sudden. It is like a James Bond film where everyone misses the moment they need to.
There is even a
That's
James
what
Bond pun in
Stormtroopers
it,
do.
isn't there? When they destroy the droid, and he says, "Well, he used
Yeah,
his
yeah.
head." I mean,
Yeah.
that's ooh,
I
yeah.
didn't like that either.
That's-
Also,
think
like,
it's
I have
James
to
Bond,
ask,
not
like,
this.
if this thing is immune to blaster fire, which I'm assuming has quite a bit of energy behind it, like, but you can just drop a fucking bust of someone's head on it, and that crushes it. I don't understand
I
how
don't
that
know. I
armor
don't know how
works.
anything works.
It's also it's an actual war droid, but apparently its armor is less than just a random statue that someone.
Yeah,
has.
it would be like, I don't know, it'd be like throwing a brick at a tank and it just fucking explodes. Like,
Mando
shouldn't
later
be able
on-
to take that.
Mando later on says, "I'm not sure I could even take this if it had all of its limbs." So he's rated himself in power levels versus a droid.
Well, you'd imagine those things would be a little more common if they were that effective, but then again, the Mandalorian's effectiveness, as we saw in the opening scene, is probably at like a scale of 1 on the top 10. It's just like, why the hell would you hire them for anything? The only
Also,
reason
you-
Mando's got this far is because he's immune to bullets.
Didn't he
You would
take it
also
out in
assume-
season 1 anyway? I thought he'd already beaten this droid.
He did, yeah.
So
And you would also assume that this droid wasn't better than a Dark Trooper, which he beat in season 2 as well. So-
This droid is like
Dark
the turd
Trooper
that
fight,
won't
holy
flush.
fuck.
Is it going to end up being like the connective tissue that ties like every fucking like season of this show together? Like it's going to keep getting blown up and reassembled every season.
I mean, do you want to know my theory of why it exists? Is literally the only reason it exists is so it could have an action scene for a bit. And the action scene was only, I'm going to drag myself across the floor with one arm. So it was never a threat to any of them at any point during that entire scene, if you think about it. And the next scene was, I'm going to introduce really, really small mechanics, which Baby Yoda is going to enjoy, and hug them. And if you go on Twitter, it is literally just Baby Yoda hugging in this thing, and everyone's like, "Oh, it's so amazing!" I think that's the only reason that entire group of scenes existed.
yeah, I mean, I
think,
think as with everything
small
else in The
engineers.
Mandalorian, the only reason the droid existed in the first place in season 1 was fan service. So I mean, you could have put any other droid in there, but IG-88 is, if you've read the old expanded universe stuff, you know, if you played any of the old N64 games, you'll have encountered IG-88. So much of season 1 is just about, hey guys, you know, I know what we've said repeatedly, but we really don't actually hate you. Look, here are some things you recognize. But now they've had to run with it, and so now the droid still exists, and there's toys of it. So of course they have to keep it.
Now we're
Well-
in the position of like somehow IG-88 returned.
Yes. That scene is hilarious, and I think just where you made this same point when you were watching it, but it's just like it has to go by so fast because you realize that if anyone just thought about it for 5 seconds, it's a crawling around droid. Just walk out of the room and he's done.
Yeah.
There's nothing he
Yep.
can do.
He
Close
has
the
one arm
door.
and no legs.
Just close the door and he's done.
Like all it cares about is Grogu as well. So like he does, he tosses Grogu to Grief Karga, and then like he could just run out of the room with
Yeah,
him.
and he's like, "Oh my god, man, don't shoot him!" And it's like, dude, just take a step back, and then another one, and then another one. It's like they want you to feel the stress and power of the situation when you're just sitting there like this is clowny, man. There's nothing happening.
Yeah, is this meant to like harken back to the fucking first Terminator movie or something? You know, when it's like dragging itself across the floor and like Linda Hamilton's like trying to
Yes.
crawl away from it.
I think they
think
even
And that's
have a
horrific and
shot.
terrifying because she's equally immobilized as it is. But like that's not what this is.
I think the entire thing relies on your emotions for Baby Grogu. Like everything, even the first scene between Mando and sort of the engineer that's built his helmet and stuff, all that is from Baby Yoda's perspective. So they're having a conversation, but you keep cutting to this guy who's just looking at the two of them. And from his perspective, you go through the city, and it just keeps focusing on him. Every time you see a screenshot, you see a screenshot of him. So he's meant to be the eyes through which you view the world. And so you're supposed to put yourself in Baby Yoda's position in that fight, that something is after you. But if you don't care about Baby Yoda, this entire episode is pointless.
I am starting to feel like Baby Yoda is going to be like one of the worst things to happen to modern Star Wars, because it's like someone serves you a delicious chocolate cake, like a little slice of it, and you're like, oh, that's nice. And then they give you another one, like, well, I'm kind of full, but I'll have some, I guess. And then like another one comes and another one, and it's like they just won't stop with it. That's what this character is. It's just he's cute, he's merchandisable. Let's just keep shoving him down your throat,
like
and it becomes less effective every time.
That feels
I mean, that's why he was in
generous for
Boba
that
Fett.
analogy.
He was in Boba Fett because they realized we've sent him away at the end of the first one, but we need him in the next one to keep the viewers and to keep the merchandise going. So we're going to have to come up with some kind of way to bring him back. And so they had to use a different series to bring him back into the series in the first place.
There was the argument at the time with the Boba Fett episodes, like, have they literally just pinched the first few episodes of season 3 of The Mandalorian to,
Which I think
to
they did.
bolster
I
a
still
flagging
think
show?
they did.
Yeah, well, I was
really
going to say,
feels
does this actually just bolster that argument? Because
Those-
it's,
Episodes, what, like 5 and 6 or something of Book of Boba Fett, or 4 and 5, I can't remember, but they were definitely episodes 1 and 2 of season 3 originally, but something bad happened in production, or something got scrapped, they moved things around, and then everything got reset. No way that you reset the entire formula outside of the TV show. What is that? That is one of the weirdest things anyone has ever done, and Disney are just like, la la la, everything's fine.
I know.
It's
I
okay.
think it's more basic than that. I think it's literally like they realized they had enough story for Boba Fett to fill like 4 episodes or something. Like, what else can we do to generate a bit of interest? Because what the scripts that we have are absolute garbage. Okay, well, there's a plot line about like Mando getting reunited with Grogu. Yeah, okay, let's use that and like just work it into this story,
Like,
and then it will all
normally-
culminate in a big battle scene, and everyone will be happy.
Normally, I'd agree with you that it could be that simple, but it's the main thing that throws me off is the production values. You watch Boba Fett 1, 2, 3, 4, and then Mando comes in, and it's like way higher budget. It's actually got like focus. If you remember, that's probably the best episode of the season, where he's like on an actual bounty mission. He visits like a bunch of people in like a butcher's place, alien thing, has a big old fight. He's in this like
Oh,
new
yeah.
world. He goes to sort out the money, and then the mechanics. He needs to get a new ship. It's like, this is a story, and this is like, it looks pretty good, like overall. Then you go back to fucking Boba Fett, that same Tatooine set every single episode. You're just like, what is going on? Like, it's not the B team that made Mando, it's the fucking A team. Like, where were they for the rest of Boba Fett? And it's like, it's probably because that was made, and then it could be something to do with Pedro Pascal for all we know. Like, I don't know what's happened, but they stopped producing, I guess, and then they were like, Book of Boba Fett has to fill like that. It's 7 episodes. It's so bizarre. Like, I don't know what that was, and it looks like it just wanted to fill time to keep people like, oh yeah, Star Wars is still a thing, while they worked on Kenobi. And then that filled time until they sorted out whatever they're doing with Mando. And then they recently said about Mando, they don't have any plans to end Mando at any point. They'll just keep it going forever. And Pedro Pascal said, yeah, I'll play Mando forever, because now he's just doing fucking recording lines, because he's not even in the suit anymore. Someone else is credited for that.
Mhm.
And like, remember, he says less than a page of lines per episode. So this
Yeah,
is
I
easy
mean,
money.
Christ, yeah, that's got to be the easiest gig in the world. And the thing is, his voice is so like not synthesized, but it's like it's going through a microphone built inside his helmet, so it doesn't even sound like Pedro Pascal anyway.
It's dude, it's the fucking nightmare world. He is told to deliver those lines as flat as possible, and it's
Yep.
filtered to sound robotic, and he just doesn't give a fuck. I kind of hate Din Djarin as a fucking character because he's so characterless. He's like Ray in terms of production.
It's superficiality, isn't it? He's on the surface, the very like surface level, he looks cool with his armor and his helmet and stuff, and because you can't see his face, he's kind of mysterious and interesting, and like he's he does enough cool combat stuff to make him look, you know,
So who's
kind of
gonna like
compelling.
him? He shoots the gun and he has the armor and he flies.
That's literally
sometimes.
it, yeah. Like any one of us could like strap that armor on and just look the same and deliver that same level of performance. That's all it is.
I think, I mean, again, not to defend season one overly, but I think season one again had a premise which was at least a little bit more than that, in the sense that you've got the basic model for the character is quite clearly like a Clint Eastwood from a Western style thing, and the premise was, hey, what happens if he discovers that he cares about something, and then what if Clint Eastwood had to babysit? And so that's you know, you could do things with that could be interesting. It's just that was the pitch, and then you have to move on from the pitch. You actually have to do stuff with that, and you can't just keep repeating the pitch over and over again for every episode.
Was there ever an expectation he didn't care about stuff? When was that ever a thing? Because I think you're being too generous when you say he's like Clint Eastwood in like the Man with No Name type stuff. Like he's just when was he ever? What about him is immoral or dubious in any way?
I think it's been ages since I've seen season one, so maybe I'm wrong, but I thought the impression was given that this was a guy. He is, by definition, he is a bounty hunter, he is a mercenary, and those words carry in certain loaded connotations.
No,
the show
you're
didn't
completely
necessarily
right.
tell us that he was absolutely heartless and cold and cruel and callous, but he was prepared to basically just do anything for a job, for some credits to keep going. There was no higher sort of
That's what I
attachment in
wanted
his
from the
life.
show. We never got that.
Yeah. No.
Episode 1, we see his first job. He grabs Baby Yoda, and and then his big decision is, I kind of like the baby. I don't want to take the money. Actually, wait, I'll take the money and the baby. That's
Do you
what
think
happens.
it would have worked better if like they'd built that up more slowly over the course
Hell,
of the
dude!
season?
Dude, a whole season of him doing, bounties that are like, you start out pretty like chill in terms of he takes down some criminals, people who are stealing money or people, but then he like grabs someone who's clearly just innocent, but he commits to it, and then end it with the baby. That's his last mission, and it's worth a shit ton of money. That would be a fine season ender.
But then that would require like investment in the audience and like a slow build up and patience on the part of the writers. And it's like they don't want that. They want the shortcut to just big, grandiose like character moments, payoffs, emotional, climaxes and stuff. That's what they wanted.
I think you can do both. For instance, like there seems to have been a definite cut between opinions of whether you just need to be something which is slow burn, which means nothing happens for episodes and episodes and episodes, compared to actually developing the character and having some kind of action scene stuff. I think you can do action scenes combined with developing the character. And I think if you look at any kind of Korean or Japanese show, they prove that. Alice in Borderlands proved that you can do that perfectly. They can have an episode of a game, and you have no idea who these characters are at the start, but they develop the character enough so that you know everything about them by the end of an hour. As well as the original people, and it's moved on, and you've had a game in the middle. So I think you can definitely do both. But with the Mandalorian, I think when you do a bounty hunter, there are kind of two ways you can go. You can either care about the money, or you can care about justice. Like, so I either support the law, or I'm just doing this for kind of personal reasons. I'm still not sure which the Mandalorian is.
He is the most moral, upstanding guy in the fucking universe. I don't think we've seen him make a bad decision ever. He's so nice and good.
I'm not sure morals would come into a bounty hunter, though. You either support
that's what I'm saying.
the law, or you support
that's
money.
it, yeah. Like, he could have started off, like, completely amoral.
He's a
I'll just take
veteran.
on any job, no questions asked. Like, I'll just do it. And, like, you could gradually have him start to question the jobs that he's doing. And
Exactly.
maybe he lets one go that he should have, like, captured, and that starts a chain of events that ultimately gets him, like, exiled from his current
I almost
profession.
think it's everybody's imagination that's helping out this show, because it sounds perfect almost. It's like, he's a veteran bounty hunter who works in a world that's like torn apart by war, and his parents were killed in the Clone Wars, and he's met with it's like, oh yeah, this is all great. He hates droids. Remember that? That's gone. This is a fucking distant memory. This is something that we've been complaining about on EFAP forever. He has no character. He is just Guy. There's nothing you can draw from him really at all.
Do you think it's because he's kind of given up his own moral system for a third-party one? So his morals are that of his cult, which seems like a retcon. I don't think it was a cult in the previous ones, but now he's like some kind of third-party outside of Mandalorian kind of group, which actually want to bring back tradition, whereas
the moment
Mandalore was...
Bo-Katan showed up, she basically
Yes.
upended the whole thing and says, like, yeah, you don't represent Mandalorians, you're just
guys
a
are
weird
weird.
fringe cult.
I despised her entire story with Mandalore, to me, her entire story with Mandalore was like, we're now a progressive group of people that want to move forwards into the future, and you've split us up, and we died because you didn't want to move forwards with us, rather than you wanted to maintain your kind of traditional beliefs, which caused the downfall of all of Mandalore. It's like, okay,
I thought
Disney.
the downfall of Mandalore was because of the Republic lost the planet or whatever.
Or the Empire.
I don't know the deep lore,
The
but she
Empire,
definitely
yeah.
blamed them. There was even a piece at the end of the scene where it's like, you split off from us, and that was why we died.
Well, because
like, well, isn't that
seems
your
like
fault?
bullshit.
I think was she talking about the Darksaber because of those retarded rules about how
Yeah, oh god. So she
think that
has
was
a line,
extra.
doesn't she, where she criticizes his clinging to what she calls just old superstitions. In the exact same scene as she clings to an old superstition about
Yeah.
needing the Darksaber to reunite the clans of Mandalore.
Well, the thing
Can
is,
you
I
make
don't
your
know.
mind up?
I don't know if she believes that, but it's more like she recognizes that her followers need the Darksaber to follow her.
As
So,
far
like,
as I
it's
know,
just,
she
it's
does
just a
believe
means
it
to an
in
end.
that stuff. Because Drinker, remember, he offered her the Darksaber, and she said, "No, I can't take it unless I earn it from you." It's like, bitch, just tell people you did.
It's also fucking stupid. I lose track of who's more stupid than someone
I don't
else.
know. I kind
Just,
of
bro, if it means saving your planet, like, come on.
Yeah, but I kind of like that in the idea that the Darksaber by itself doesn't mean anything. Like, it doesn't confer any powers. It doesn't actually provide you any benefits. It's the idea that the Darksaber is only ever with the strongest person, and so as a kind of warrior group of people, you would want to only follow the strongest person. But with that in mind, I don't know why she didn't just fight him and beat him in a fight.
Well, the thing
Like,
is, he
that's
doesn't
what I
want to
expected at
fight,
the end
but
of
they
season
don't
two.
have
She just
they don't
fight
have
him.
rules for this. We went nuts when they announced, like, they made this clear in season 2. We had to pause because we were like, wait, what if you hold the? Because you have to win it off a person by beating them in a fight, right? But what if
Yeah,
that
just have
person
a
had
challenge
heart
at the
attack?
end.
What if they had a heart attack? Who gets the Darksaber?
And what if you just cheap shot them from behind or something, like while they're holding it? It's
Yeah,
like,
does
well,
that
Well, you
count?
could have
gotta
that, like,
beat
honor.
you.
You could have, like, the Klingon version of honor combined with I need to beat you in a fight.
Well,
So you just have, like, I need to challenge you in a duel 1v1, and she beats him, and he's like, okay.
Yeah,
And-
exactly,
and
dude.
Even if you had, like, him faking that he lost, it'd still be, like,
he
it'd
wanted
be
her to
enough for
have
everyone
it.
else.
She wanted to
The
have
Darksaber
it.
would know.
The Darksaber. He definitely should have
isn't
been like,
Harry
I will
Potter
totally
wizards.
100% fight you.
They
Then
don't
she,
like-
she like taps him, and he's like, "Ah, you got me. Ah, jeez, yeah, you win. There you go." Everyone
Darksaber's just at the sidelines going, boo! You fucking sold out.
So yeah, the idea that she's depressed because everyone ditched her because she didn't get to have the Darksaber, it's so annoying to listen to because it's like, well, then what is the solution if a friend gets it? What do? You just can't do. I just don't. Like, it's so dumb. And she probably should have asked him to come with her, like, desperately, if it meant literally that they can't save Mandalore without him because he has the Darksaber. Like, I don't think she really made that clear in season 2. Because she said that people melted away. I was like, they were only following you because they expected you to get the Darksaber?
Yeah, they clearly weren't that committed.
Damn.
There's just one little thing I wanted to respond to before we carry on with Mando discussions. Drinker, can you just say that Nope was good and that you liked it? I mean, I thought that kind of came across in my review. Like, I gave it a fairly positive review. Like, my overall take on the movie was, I thought it was pretty decent. I thought it, like, dealt with some interesting ideas. There was clearly a bit of thought that went into it. It just had a few issues, like, with logical consistency and
Yeah, I
actually
like
holding
parts
the
of
story
it.
together. But
I liked
yeah,
it a
like,
hell
there
of a
was-
lot more than us.
Yes, way more.
Yeah.
I think it was just the ideas were a bit more clouded in this one, and you had to dig a little deeper to get to them. But yeah, overall, I thought it was a pretty decent movie, and that's what I said in my review. And it's way more fucking intelligent than about 99% of the other sludge that comes out now. So there you go.
Why can't you just beat Mando in chess? Does that count?
It's combat of a kind.
Beating him in an arm wrestling contest or something, you know. It's like,
There was a
Yeah.
TV show that did an entire episode about chess. I can't remember what it was. I remember watching it on, like, Channel 5 at midnight.
there
when
was
I
an
a
entire
teenager.
show
Gambit.
dedicated to chess. Yeah, Queen's Gambit, which was really good actually.
It was a sci-fi show. I can't remember.
But
where are we,
anyway,
I was going to say, where do we think this is going? So obviously we've got the Darksaber. We know, because Bo-Katan tells us that the people who used to follow her are now off somewhere else in the galaxy. Mando, she says to Mando, have you still got it? He's like, yeah, I do. You remember that incredibly important thing. We should probably reference that in a single line of dialogue. I've still got it. So are we going to have a side quest to go and pick up some Mandalorians at some point?
He's
as
got to
well
have his
with the
mystical
Darksaber?
bath,
No.
right? Do we think that'll happen early or late or mid?
wait.
I'm not
What's going to
sure.
happen, right? All of stuff is going to culminate in the last couple of episodes where the Darksaber, the bathing in the living waters under Mandalore. It's all going to come down to like a big final fight between, I think, him and Bo-Katan, perhaps.
Well, if you remember,
She's going to work with him throughout the episode and eventually turn against him because of her own personal ambition.
I don't know if they're going to buck tradition, but episode 2 of season 1 was the thing you described, Drinker, where his ship parts are all taken, and then by the end of the episode, he gets them all back. In season 2, it was he crashed into that ice planet, and then he got out of the ice planet by the end of it. So, like a self-contained side quest thing. That's probably what we're getting next episode. Or are we going to get more of a plot one? Because this really was the self-contained episode. Episode 1, really, wasn't it? Like,
yeah. This was just checking it. You know what this was? It was just checking in on all the characters, telling you where they're at. We know where Greef Karga is. We know where Bo-Katan is. We know, like, Cara Dune's not going to be part of this. We've established our overarching... Yeah, we know what Babu Frick is up to. And we know for our overarching quest for the season. So that's what this was about. We need to establish who can help Mando and what he has to do.
And we've also potentially got our new recurring villain in Space Davy Jones as well, because there's pirates in this now. And they actually say Avast at one stage, but it's the most piratey thing about them. That if you're going to have pirates say Avast, you might as well go the whole hog. Just like have them speak piratese. Yar.
Yeah, have like hooks for hands and stuff.
One of my favorite lines from the whole episode is when Greef Karga says to him, "Pirates are no longer welcome here," which is like, I'm sorry, pirates are no longer welcome. I guess before he was like, "Yay, pirates!"
Even there's a dumb decision even there as well, because he tells them they're not welcome. They get into the gunfight. They beat them all. He lets one of them live so he can go and tell the Pirate King that this undefended town, which we know and he knows is undefended because the only security is Mando, who just happened to be in the scene. This entirely undefended town is now at war with the pirates. But then, so that's already done, because you would expect the pirates to come and take some kind of vengeance for that. But then Mando goes up into space, and it turns out that rather than going to the undefended planet with a heavy force and recapturing this now very profitable spaceport, instead they've just been waiting out in some asteroids for the Mandalorian to fly past.
That was lucky, wasn't it?
That made complete sense to me. Yes, when you find out that the only reason that you couldn't take over this town any way you wanted to is because a fucking random bounty hunter happened to be visiting. So instead of taking revenge on Greef Karga and getting everything here, it's like, we're going to go after that one Mandalorian. Like, why? What's the idea there? It's like, yeah, well, we really don't like him. It's like, okay.
And I'm fully behind the idea of, like, space lanes. We have sea lanes, so people go on a specific route, so, you know, you could kind of predict the route. There's still multiple places you could have gone, and they had no idea that he was even going to go on that route. And they were waiting in an asteroid field specifically for him with a capital ship.
He could have hyperdrive by that
fighters were waiting behind, and then they led him back to the capital ship after he'd already killed people, and the captain got mad at them because they'd blown up some of their fighters that were trying to kill him. It's like, well, I should kill you because you've killed some of my crew. They were trying to kill him! What do you expect?
I've never understood that shit.
Oh! And his entire plan of how I get away from this is I'm going to fly directly at you in a straight line. And this is after the script made a big deal of, they've got a target lock.
I know, yeah. That shit's great. It's like, that's a signal to the audience that he's in trouble. And it's like, okay,
they're not going to miss.
Not going to miss.
Unless I fly directly at you in a straight line, in which case they're going to miss perfectly.
Miss completely.
Or just like aim slightly away and then go to hyperspace. It's like, okay, I'm gone. See you later.
It felt like an algorithmically set episode. It's got the Mexican standoff kind of fight with a giant monster in the water, then a fight in space. They're all relatively quick enough, not too long, don't outstay. We got our cameos in there. We adventured to a couple of space planets, and we had Grogu doing cute things. It's like, wow, this ticked every box. There's no story. It's just stuff that is supposed to be approved.
All we needed was the characters trying to avert some catastrophe and going, we only get one shot at this. that was the only thing missing.
This is the way, and that fucking sound effect they play all the time whenever he does anything. The like the cool sound. It's just like, oh, there it is. Every time he kills one of the ships, when he blows them up, it plays that fucking sound effect. It's like, shut the hell up.
I honestly think the more of an overarching story they try to weave into it, the less compelling it becomes. Like, it was more fun, the idea of him just going on like episodic adventures week to week. Like, what planet is he going to land on now? What kind of crazy shit's he going to get involved in?
The most interesting thing I think they ever did was in season 1, and this is why I give more credit to season 1 than 2 and 3 as it stands, is that mission where he was brought in with several other mercenaries to do a heist on like a jail like barge or whatever to free
Yeah.
one of the like. That's the most interesting concept you guys have ever fucking come up with.
Yeah, because they're like
It was
screwing
the
each
first
other
one
over and
with
stuff.
the comedian who's in this episode as well.
Bill Burr.
Yeah.
Oh, well, yeah.
American
Funnily enough,
guy.
it's Bill Burr, and there was a droid in that episode voiced by Richard Ayoade as well, who's another comedian, British. But it's just that
I love
the
him.
episode is
He's
so
good.
much more fucking interesting because it's a bunch of people who don't know if they can trust each other. They're all brought together for a payment, and some of them have ulterior motives. Just like, good God, could you imagine a season worth of stuff like that? That'd have been nice.
It'd been cool.
But oh well.
So we all loved Mando season 1 then. Sorry, season 3, episode 1 then.
Yeah, really.
We fully
strong
recommend
start.
it. Clearly.
Well, Disparu, I think you were right when you just said, well, if you like the first 2 seasons, then you're going to
Yeah.
like this one because it's just more of the
Yeah.
same shit.
Well, that was the thing. Like, the entire episode to me was a bit like water. It was like, I don't really have a feeling either way. I've already experienced this before. I know what it's going to taste like. It was exactly what I expected, having watched the previous 2 seasons. I just got more of the same of what I already wanted. Well,
To be
wanted.
fair, I think water's good for us. I think this was shit. Like, watching your
You
video
know what
too.
I mean? I mean, like, something that's... The thing is, like, the stuff that I've watched is... Like, my entire theory is that your bar of quality is based around what you've seen. And I have recently watched She-Hulk, then Willow, then, like, I've watched every crap series that's ever existed. Like, Rings
Hence
of Power.
hence the drinking.
Well, yeah. And so now my bar... I started going and watching Korean and Japanese dramas that specifically to try and reset some kind of bar of quality. And then other
Well,
people
why
come to me, it's like,
didn't
no,
they?
Mandalorian Season 3 is really good. I think, well, what did you watch last?
That
You
has
know,
been the
'cause
interesting thing. I streamed on
I
this
think that affects it.
yesterday on Mr. Brown's channel, and he does a rating out of 10 at the end. And most people were saying probably sort of 4 or 5, which I still think is too high
Wow.
for this episode. But you will still find there are more. You're more likely to find people popping up in the chat saying, "Why are you being so negative about the Mandalorian? I thought this episode was pretty good." Than if it were an episode of Boba Fett with equivalent writing quality. Just to take one
Exactly.
approximate example. People do still really like this character, and they are much more forgiving of it than they would be of anything else. But the question, again, will always be, okay, is this episode as good as, I don't know, just to take the starkest possible example, is it as good as Empire Strikes Back? No, it's clearly not as good as Empire Strikes Back,
do you-
right?
do you want
So
me-
why
if
don't
there
you
was
ask
some hot
yourself
take
the question,
example-
why are they not as good as each other? Why is one of them worse than the other one? Because if you start asking those questions, just that simple question, why is this not as good as that? Then you are starting to think about some of the problems that do actually exist in this show. And you might then come away from it demanding better. But unless you start demanding better of it, if you are going to give this episode a pass because, hey, the Mandalorian looks cool, then fine. But we're going to get this forever. And it's the sludge pumping away.
I think 4 out of 5, sorry, 4 out of 10 is probably not unreasonable for this episode because it wasn't like I was enraged by how terrible it was. It's not an episode of She-Hulk. It's not an episode of Velma. It's just bland. It's
Those
just
are like
generic.
ones.
It's just kind of
I'd give it
stuff
5.
that you could have on in the background and it would keep you mildly amused as long as you don't think about it too
Is there
much.
anything to compliment for the writing in a substantive way?
No. But
I'm trying
If-
to think
if you
of,
want
is
my
there a
hot take,
single
if-
conversation that like made me think, oh, I'm interested in this? Not really. It's just, at best, it's serviceable. It's serviceable dialogue that just moves things along, and at worst, it's like cheesy and clunky.
what did, as far as I'm aware, because I think I'm aware of your opinions, but you 3 liked, and I've only seen the first 4 episodes, so let's go with the first 4 episodes of Andor.
Andor's
Yes.
pretty good, yeah.
And I think all 3 of you liked the first 4 episodes of Andor, correct?
I mean,
Yeah.
I kind of like the whole season, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I've only watched the first 4 episodes,
Oh,
so
okay,
I can't
yeah,
judge
yeah.
off the rest. Yeah, I think this was better than the first 4 episodes of Andor.
Jesus fucking Christ.
I think you need to reevaluate your life, sir.
Well, yeah, exactly, that's what I mean. But if you want to come from a normie perspective, I think that's what you're going to get. Like, in the first 4 episodes, barely anything happened. Episode 3, I did like episode 3. I thought that was great. I thought episode 3 was far better than anything in Mandalorian that's ever been created. The other 3, I thought were some of the boring
well, it
television
comes
I've
down
ever
to-
seen in my
it-
life.
It comes down to what you value, I suppose. Like, if you're just looking for, like, crowd-pleasing entertainment, just, like, shootouts and cool-looking characters.
But I think that's
and
what
stuff.
most people are after.
Well,
like,
I don't
obviously,
know,
I'm going
like-
to assume that what I prefer is what most people prefer. But if you're like, well, when people watch a Star Wars movie, do they want lightsaber fights and blaster fights? I think the answer is going to be yes.
So what's your standard for criticizing The Mandalorian season 3 episode 1? Because you're getting gunfights and you're
The
getting
crocodile
it looks like
fight
Star
was
Wars.
crap because of how they acted with regards to.
But
I'm
it
going
was
to tie myself to a creature far greater than I am. I'm
It
not
was
going to move. I'm not
action,
going to use any
lasers
strategy.
and blaster shots and explosions.
Yeah, but the actual fight was awful. It wasn't entertaining. It went on far too long. It didn't change enough. They engaged in actions which were stupid with regards to the actions the enemy they were actually fighting. You go through to the enemy. The enemy, when they brought back the droid, he was one guy dragging himself across the ground with the one arm. You go through to the space fight, and it was a fight that we've seen in multiple other films repeatedly. It was kind of something you'd expect from Rambo. He's in a forest, appearing around trees, popping out of water, popping out of bushes, against one person at a time, guerrilla fighting. But this time they've just done it in space,
But
and I'm not even sure it really works in space.
Because your argument began, I think most
like
people
action.
want to see more action with lightsabers and blaster shots, and now you're saying, well, I didn't like that scene with lightsabers and blaster shots because we've seen it before. Which of the two are you pursuing?
I think you can simultaneously believe that action fights are actually beneficial to the pace of something, and you should be original in the action fights which you're actually observing. I think you can be creative and tell a story through a fight.
Oh yeah,
Rather than the action that we got, which was I want to drink inside of a school for about 10 minutes.
So, like, hypothetically, if you talk about, say, episode 3 of Andor, where you do have a blaster fight, a shootout in, like, a big refinery complex where there's, like, you know, lots of, things falling down from the ceiling. There's
Like I
people
say,
shooting
I
at each
really
other.
enjoyed episode 3. I thought that was
Well,
like,
like,
I
I
thought
guess
that
then-
beat anything in Mandalorian. By far.
Well, I guess
Episode
that was
1,
my
2, and 4.
question. It's like, because if you combine that with like a good build-up and characters who you care about because they're kind of interesting, does that then beat what you have in Mandalorian?
And I thought you
season
said this
3?
episode beat out the first
I
four
thought
episodes
episode 4 of
Andor.
I thought episode 4 of Andor was one of the most boring pieces of television I've ever watched, only beaten by Stargate Universe episode 1, 2, and 3. And I really liked Stargate Universe, but not the first 3 episodes.
But if you take that episode like as a standalone rather than like building towards something bigger, which is kind of the nature of Andor, because you know there's an overarching story to it, I guess you'd probably recognize that there's going to be episodes which are slower because they're setting things up that are going to happen in the next
I
episode.
think you can do both. If you want the example of what I'm kind of talking about, I would use Alice in Borderland as the example of what you can do when you do both. Alice in Borderland built up characters, and it had games in there to do something. So it would build up the characters during a game. It would build up the characters during the action. I don't think it's either or. I think essentially Western writers as a whole, the whole idea of slow burn means that you're not talented enough to do both at the same time. During a game of Alice in Borderland, I learned more about the characters and cared more about the characters. If you take the whole the points game in Series 2, I'm not going to give spoilers, but if you take the points game in Series 2, where whoever got the most points wins, I cared more about the enemies of that and learned more about them in one single episode, which was an hour, than I would of an entire series. Well, the entire 4 episodes, because that's all I saw, of The Mandalorian. I think you can keep the pace up of something and give characterization while they're doing something, rather than just going to sit in a room and say something which doesn't really say anything, but I'm going to take up time.
I think Andor had pacing problems. I'd agree with that. I think it would have been better as sort of the same content, but in like a third of the number of episodes. You combine the 3 episode arcs into one long episode, and you might find that people would not have lost their patience with it quite so much.
I'd agree with that.
And you could argue, maybe the compatibilist thing is that the ideal Star Wars is something with the writing detail and the attention to detail in writing and characterization and making basic decisions to make sense as Andor, with the Mandalorian's understanding of sort of iconography and a better product understanding of action. And yeah, the ideal Star Wars combines both of these sort of approaches, as you say, but not every show is going to be every kind of Star Wars. That itself would get boring and repetitive if it was the same mechanics over and over again. I don't know that the lack of action sequences can be really held against Andor, though, in the way that you try to, because for example, have you seen, and would you say that you enjoyed a film like All the President's Men or A Few Good Men, or
You'd be more likely to get me on TV series than movies. I'm not a movie guy as a whole.
Really?
But I much prefer, like, for the last 2 decades, I preferred TV series over movies, specifically because TV series can expand on characters. Like, I would take Stargate SG-1 over any kind of movie ever, specifically because they can expand on things. I don't think movies as a whole are generally very good for telling, like, characters and action. I think most movies, like, if you take John Wick is an action movie, it's not a character movie. Movies tend to need to specialize in one thing or the other.
But well,
now,
I mean,
there are some, now if you want an example of something that gives, and this might be incredibly controversial because apparently no one likes this movie.
You've already hit incredibly controversial, but carry on.
No. I don't care about being controversial. People either like me or they don't. What I mean is, the actual movie opinion is. Has anyone ever seen the Basic movie? John Travolta.
Yeah.
I actually really like that movie. That, as if you want like a story movie, and that might be because my weakness is telling the same story, telling the same time frame from multiple different perspectives.
I don't think that's a particularly like hot take. Like know, like you can make the argument that that's an interesting narrative structure because you're retelling a past event from multiple different perspectives, depending on who's telling the story, and it's up to the audience to try to puzzle out which one's correct. You know, the same thing happened with Rules of Engagement with Samuel L. Jackson. You know, a traumatic event like that was controversial. Same thing happened with Courage Under Fire with like Meg Ryan and Denzel Washington. Different characters tell the same thing, the same event, but like they're given their own spin on it, and you've got to try and puzzle out what the real situation was. That's fine. But I would argue that you can absolutely combine like character development and plot development with action into one movie, which is like 2 or 3 hours long, and get a complete story out of that. I don't think that's
not really. I don't disagree with that. I just think that most movies don't.
I am fascinated by this. Like, absolutely. The fact that you said that John Wick is like an action movie, not really a character movie, when the character of John Wick is the whole reason I'm invested in that film. Like, the action is so much more fun because I like have this man.
Do you think that John Wick 2 is a worse movie than John Wick 1?
I think John Wick 2 and 3 are shit.
I think John Wick 3 is shit. I think John Wick 2 is the best John Wick.
Oof.
Because it has the best action scenes. I think John Wick 3 has the worst action scenes. And
I
also like how John Wick 2 expands on the whole universe. I don't like how John Wick 3 expands on the universe. Whereas John Wick 1, you don't really learn much about the universe.
Which was better because when they explained stuff, none of it made any sense anymore. Trust me,
I don't know.
It all unravels.
No, I liked
in 2
it.
and 3.
I didn't like when they went into the desert and expanded it. That's stupid.
3.
But I like the whole. Yeah. I think 3 is the worst
right?
movie. I don't like 3 at all. But I think when they, like the whole desert stuff, I don't like. But I liked when they expanded more into the whole hotel area of it and how that worked.
Point being, John Wick's often referenced by people as being like one of the better movies for like a very quick blast of character to get you invested in this person, and then when he kills people, you're like, yeah, because you know exactly why he's doing it and who he is. So that's why I find it really weird to say it's like more of an action movie than it is a character movie.
Well, even the way you just described it as more of an action movie than a character movie.
No,
what I said was character with more action.
Yeah, whereas if it were an action movie, it would be a blast of action.
No, whichever the majority is.
We get like a hardcore intro to exactly who he is. When does the first action set piece even happen in that movie? Is it like half an hour in? My point is just that you get shit tons of character.
Let's say it's half an hour into a 2-hour movie. Most of it's action.
We get the wife stuff. We get where he is. We get the dog stuff, and then we get like the villain's perspective of who he is, all of his reputation. Then we get a rundown of his entire history with what he's done and how talented he is, and then we get the action.
Like if you want my favorite 2 scenes out of John Wick 2, it is the bit where he's like, "Would you like cutlery, sir?" So he's getting his guns ready, and then it's the scene immediately afterwards where he's in the catacombs. Those are my 2 favorite.
Yeah.
So it's one would be character, one would be action.
By no means am I saying he's a deep character, but he is a character we very much understand, and it's because of that the action is accentuated.
Yeah, but my point is, in movies, you have to be that specific. Like, every single scene has to be cut precisely, because you don't have much time. I don't go along with this whole, we need 3.5-hour movies kind of thing. It's like, no, you everything has to serve a point. Whereas in TV series, you can expand more on things like Stargate SG-1 could have filler episodes, and like, well, okay, but there's 22 of them, so it's not that big of a deal. And I just don't think that movies nowadays, they don't cut to that much of an impact. I think you actually end up with the same impact if you have The Mandalorian with 8 episodes.
I certainly agree in the sense of like simple, logistics. Like if you've got 20 hours of season to play with, you can probably fit more in-depth character analysis into that amount of time, because you can put your characters into so many different situations and reveal different facets of their personalities, versus what you can do in like a 2 or 3 hour movie. That's just time constraints. If you've got the same level of script writing skill, but I don't think that diminishes what you can accomplish with a movie, particularly with telling a self-contained story that gives you a satisfying emotional payoff at the end.
Jaws is a really good example.
I don't
of that.
think
In
the same
Jaws, you
amount of
don't
skill
see the
happens.
villain in Jaws for the first 45, 50 minutes of the film. It's an entirely character-driven film for its first almost hour before you get a first glimpse of the shark that is nominally the point of the entire thing. And it's only because you've done extensive character work through the course of that hour that you give a damn when they go out on the ocean and get attacked by the shark to begin with, which is an action sequence. So the things don't compete with each other in that film at all.
Yeah, but Jaws was released, as I've just searched, didn't know it off the top of my head, obviously, in 1975. And I think to not take in the effect over time is, especially in my lifetime, is it doesn't give it a fair shake. And so, like, if you look at when the effect of television, like streaming series, when I say television, I include streaming series. Oh my god, streaming series. You end up with the fact that I think television was better when you had like Buffy, Stargate SG-1, that kind of 90s, early 2000 area was the best TV we've had, and that's what I'm comparing against the movies. And I think that TV series only declined when the budgets went up. And the budgets went up so that people from movies came across into the television area and then brought along the same ideas, the same culture, the same way of working, and they actually destroyed television, which is why now streaming series are the same level of quality as movies that were before. To me, I just moved back the scale 10 years. So that I think movies were destroyed. A lot of people will be like, well, 2016 was when movies were destroyed. Like, no, I think it was destroyed before that. It's just that now it's spread into television series because the budgets went up.
I'm still slightly struggling to follow the argument here. So going back
it's been
to
a complex argument. To be specific, I'll be able to clarify.
So the action...
I just want to ask you about loads of different things. Like, what do you think about Lord of the Rings trilogy? How are you on with that?
Lord of the Rings trilogy is unique in the case that when I was a kid, really didn't like it. I thought it was too slow. Now I watch it, I think it's great. This has happened to me with several things, like Enterprise, the prequel series. Didn't like it when I was a kid. Now I watch it, I think it's a great track. I don't know whether that's because I've matured as a person or because I'm comparing against different quality of things that have been produced since.
Okay, because it seems like perception of pacing as well. Because I was going to ask, like, how do you deal with people who say, like, "Man, do I love Andor because it's so engaging and exciting," but fuck, Alison
I
Borderland
think Andor is one of the most. First 4 episodes, I think it's one of the most boring things I've ever seen.
No, of course.
I liked episode 3.
I'm saying, because I don't think this personally, but what do you say to the person who says, "I found Andor engaging and exciting throughout"?
I don't care. I don't mind if someone enjoys something. To me, if you enjoy another show, great. It doesn't bother me. I'm just.
I guess what we're saying is like going beyond just I liked it because it made me happy. Is like if someone tries to argue the objective point that like it is engaging, it is exciting, like you can get invested in this. What would be your take?
I mean,
on it?
what is the to grip? Keeping it to the first 4 episodes, what is the to grip? Well, like I say, I liked episode 3, but I would probably say I liked episode 3 because stuff actually happened into it. It moved forwards. You saw more of the Empire. You saw the fights with the Empire. Especially the first episode. I don't know what there is to grip onto in the first episode to even like about it. It was largely him walking places. And that's one of the same complaints I would have about Mandalorian. I think they share... In fact, I think Mandalorian's pacing is far better.
I guess I would kind of make the argument that you could have an episode which is largely dedicated to setting up characters, establishing world building, just giving you the stakes of what's going on.
What character did it build in episode 1?
Well,
what did you learn?
I think with Cassian, like, you know that you know that he's looking for his sister. That's like his initial objective. You get a bit of an insight into like where he's at as a person. Like he's not a hardcore fighter or anything. He kills two men out of self-defense and he's panicking about it. He's trying to outrun that situation, get back to his home planet so he can regroup, get his head together. Trouble follows him back because of an overzealous, security overseer who's just super dedicated to his job, and it triggers a chain of events that ultimately is going to have massive repercussions. Throughout the series. There is stuff going on, but a lot of it is setting things up for future events. But I guess the argument I was about to make there was that if you are kind of interested in the characters initially, you're going to care about the things that are churning along in the background that are going to have big repercussions for them later. I think that's what Andor kind of succeeds in doing. It's not perfect, but I think because it gives you good world building, good development of its main characters, you kind of are interested to see where it's going, even if there's not a lot of things happening in that initial episode. You know that it's going to have repercussions.
And I would say that more happens even with characters. Even if you just took the character development alone, I would say that you get more character development in one episode of Alice in Borderland than you do in 4 episodes of Andor.
That might be true.
I think the way any of us compare things,
sure.
I think the way any of us compare things is relationally, relatively. So you can't judge things objectively and like, oh well, this kept me entertained for 4 hours. You have to compare it to another TV series that did the same in the same amount of time.
Well, what do you think about it compared to like Mando? Because I actually think Mando is like substanceless. There's just nothing in it. There's nothing to. I
think it's like water. Like
that's actually where I'd agree with the water comparison.
It's very just.
It's like eating
kind of
water
exists.
Cubes.
Like you know what you're gonna get, you get it. If you like, I still think the best thing is if you like 1 and 2, you'll like this. If you don't, you don't. I don't think it develops the characters because I don't think the characters have any depth.
To sort of piggyback,
I would agree that the characters of Andor have more depth than this.
You know, to sort of piggyback on what I think Drinker was partially getting at. The way Andor worked as a season was 3-3-4-2, I think, was the arcs. And so, take the second 3, right? Episodes 4, 5, 6. 4 introduces our ragtag team that he's been thrown into that are going to have to set up this big old heist thing. Okay.
That's what made me leave. I'm like, oh, screw it.
Then 5 is like developing it all, set up the timings and getting way more information about Luthen and Mothma and how they control the political side of things, all the different ways it's going to fall apart. And the team have big disagreements and almost fall apart, but then the plan's about to go. And then the final episode is the actual plan happening. Several people die, huge things go wrong. They just escape, there's betrayals, blah, blah, blah. But like the idea being those first 2 that I guess people could call a slow burn would be the reason the third one kicks as hard as it does. Like that's kind of the strategy in storytelling. Meanwhile, if we had action scenes in 4, 5, and 6, they'd be potentially ill-placed, and I'd be sitting here complaining about this algorithmic fucking storytelling where it's like time for an action scene. When Mando is in the room with Grief Karga and they're like, "Sir, pirates!" I was like, "Oh, for fuck's sake!" Let's just have an action scene, I guess.
Because I guess some of it comes down to your mentality with storytelling, but when we get these little insights of how the Imperial Intelligence Service works and the kind of turf wars that are going on between them, and how an outsider could come in with their own a zealous quest for revenge or justice or whatever, it's kind of interesting because it just gives you a little bit of background world building, I guess, that's important.
I like some of that, and I think it's disingenuous to go, well, the only action, the only difference is between, well, we either have nothing happening where we're just developing characters, or we have action scenes. It's like, no, I like some of the original Andor, like the scene where, I think it's in the first one, where he's talking, it's a very, I would describe it, it's a very paperworky scene. Why did you do this? Why did this happen? Mm-hmm. He explains that I've got people above me that need to learn about this, and I want you to shut up because it's going to cause trouble with my bosses. And it explains why they may ignore certain things in the environment. I get all that. It's just I think that you could edit those first 3 hours into one episode. And I think slow burn. I think even by the definition of slow burn means boring.
It's
slow.
Yeah. I completely get it.
How else
you're
saying that you could cut stuff out of there that don't need to be in there because then it wouldn't be
reference
slow. It would just be a burn. And
It's
that's
just
what
a
I'm saying.
slower form
I'm not
of
saying
cooking
that
that's still valid. Is
I'm,
probably the idea
yeah,
with
I'm
that.
not. I'm not crapping on what's there. I'm saying that we could make a better version of this that was more refined
Yeah,
and
no, and I didn't mean
has
to.
a lot less just useless stuff.
I didn't
in
mean
it.
to imply either there's no action or shit action. So no.
No,
What
but
I
that's
meant
where the
was-
conversation generally goes. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
either
What I meant
you're
was
like
that-
a deep person who likes character, or you just want lightsabers fling around. I'm like, no, you can do both. Like in Alice in Borderland, there are ways where they explain the character through the actions that they take inside a game, and so these people are put into high adrenaline situations. But the way they react to those situations explain and expand on the character themselves.
I mean, that exact argument can be made of Andor as well. I mean, the entire premise of Andor, the
Maybe.
way
I've
the,
only
way the
seen the
narrative
first
is
four.
structured, is the big things having small beginnings motif. So a single character action taken in episode 1. For example, Bix, with whom he used to have a relationship, she shacked up with somebody else. Her boyfriend sees them talking, he gets suspicious, and solely by his reaction to that little piece of information, partial information, misinformation it turns out, he takes an action which then enacts the entirety of the subsequent plot, which is based on a single character's reaction to a momentary revelation which he misconstrued. The whole thing is character-led. I would agree you could probably make it more exciting in terms of sort of flashbangs and whizzes, but if you're going to say that it's tedious because nothing happens, then you are not paying attention to the show, because plenty of stuff does.
Like I say, I've only experienced the first 4. If anything happens after the first 4, I don't know. But I would also make the argument that you cannot expect an audience to sit around for 4+ hours waiting to see if your TV show develops into anything. You're supposed to start strong, continue strong, and be strong through to the end. The whole idea that you are supposed to sit through something which will bore you to tears just so you can get to something in the finale is a terrible way of entertaining. And other places in the world, it's not like we don't have things to compare against. There are other things in the world which exist which prove that you don't have to be that way. And so
I
there
guess
may
I
have been
would
some
kinda-
incredibly...
I guess I would make the counterpoint to that I was more bored watching Boba Fett, where a lot
never
more
seen Boba
stuff
Fett.
arguably happens than in Andor, but I was more interested in what was happening in Andor because I actually cared about the characters in it, because there was more effort put into developing them and the world that they were part of.
The point I was to try to get at with the whole, what I said, I didn't mean to say it was either crap action or no action, was that it would be ill-suited in episodes 4 and 5 where they're setting up the heist to have. I don't see a place where the ragtag group are in the forest and they're preparing for the thing to have an action scene. Meanwhile, when you have a scene where he sits down with his drink or whatever, and one of them is like fiddling with a device, and he says, the reason why we have this device is that it's analog, and when you get full control over it, it gives you great access to understanding stuff. And the Empire, they want to like streamline everything in a sense to give you technology that is simplified so that they have more control over what you have control over. I was just sitting there listening to him. I was like, wow, that's kind of a really interesting idea about how different fascist systems might be able to grow and further control. And then he talks about how he's making like a little book, and he asks Andor, like, you know, what's your investment? Why are you here? And Andor's literally like, I'm here for money. And we follow up later where he's like, I'm having trouble figuring this out. I don't like working with someone who's just here for money when I'm here for a cause. And like he struggles with it for a while, and he writes about him. That's what we find out. And then we go all the way, I think, to episode either 11 or 12, where Andor's been listening to his audiobook of that. And we keep hearing snippets about this guy's perspectives on how the Empire rose and hopefully how it will fall. I find that infinitely meaningful and more engaging than a lot of stuff that may otherwise be described as engaging.
You know what I remember from episode 4?
What?
We land on a planet. He says we need to rob this thing, and then we spend the next hour talking to people, going, "We're going to rob this thing."
I think you could probably make the argument, and I think I've said this myself. Like, you could amalgamate episodes 4 and 5 into one, and then go on
that's
to
kind of my
episode
point.
6, which is like the heist. Yeah, like you kind of. It's important to have the build up. It's important to understand for the audience what they're planning to do and the stages of their plan and who's involved and what the various like concerns are, and then get it rolling with the action. So I think Andor's biggest sin is that it takes 2 episodes to do what you could probably have accomplished in one.
It was
So
like I enjoyed
that's-
episode 3, but episode 1 and 2, I think you could probably roll into episode 3 and not lose anything.
I think
but at
I
least
think
it
that's a
should have been
common
one.
complaint where it's like episodes 1 and 2 you could perhaps amalgamate into one episode, and episodes 4 and 5 you could probably do the same thing with them, and you would have a more streamlined accessible product. but I think what you get is fairly good in terms of like setup, payoff, character development, world building. It balances all of those things fairly well. It's just it takes a long time to do it.
I've drawn so much more out of Andor by the time I hit the end of it than I have in anything in all of Mando, Kenobi, and Boba Fett put together.
Yeah,
I guess what we're
like
saying here is
it
that
depends what you're comparing it against. Like to me, Alice in Borderland was my favorite TV show of 2022.
No, granted, but didn't you say that Mando season 3 episode 1 was better than Andor episodes 1, 2, 3, 4?
I was less bored. To me, being bored is the worst state of human existence. So I'm biased towards not being that. Like anytime I'm bored, I'm like my entire. I'm not even joking, right? If I get bored with something, my entire body kind of shuts down. It's horrible. No.
Well, anyway, this discussion went off into a whole tangent about like Andor and stuff.
How much of chat did it piss off? Because I can see my name being tagged a lot.
You know, it's like when you have a different take, like you get some interesting feedback. But you know, it's good to have discussions like this because it would be boring if we all just had the exact same opinion about everything. So it's always good to hear like different points of view, and it's like it doesn't mean that anyone's like bad or wrong or anything. It's just like we're interested to hear it, I suppose. But hey, there's something.
Conversations, yeah.
Yeah, there's something that we could probably all agree on in the next one is that Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania has kind of flopped. And I say this because it's subjectively true in that the numbers do not necessarily lie. I will say that it has now been out since February 17th, so what is that, like over 2 weeks now? And it is sitting at 367 million worldwide. Now, that is for a $200 million movie. A $200 million movie, which cost another $200 million to market, which they're probably only going to get, maybe, I'm going to be super generous and say 60% of the gate receipts on that one. So they're probably looking at about 700 million just to break even. And they are sitting at, after 2 weeks, 367 million. They are not getting anywhere near that total. This movie has burned out already.
Pretty sure it got reshot to hell and back too. The amount of endings I've heard about that didn't make it to the final cut is pretty interesting. The one everyone's talking about is that Hope and Ant-Man were supposed to be stuck in the quantum realm at the end, but they were like, "Fuck that! We're gonna just have a portal open. It'll be fine."
We've just got to get everything back to the way it was.
Like they responded to that and said the reason that they decided against it was because it was the same as the second movie. It's like, yeah, but that was the better ending to the movie. It doesn't matter if something repeats. It matters if that's the better. If that leads to a better story, do it.
For anything. It's such a self-contained piece of shit film. Like nothing really comes of it other than like, well, Kang, he's spooky, he's around. It's like, okay,
but he isn't spooky. He gets defeated every time he ever appears. This is meant to be your big bad that you're building an entire universe on, and every time he appears, you crap on him as if he's absolutely useless. He got defeated by ants. And we're supposed to, he's the same as Thanos.
He got killed by female Loki first time around. Like, she just fucking stabbed him. And then you've got, like, this douchebag who just gets killed by a bunch of ants. Like you said in that, I couldn't believe this was real at the time when you described this to me, Mauler. Kang the Conqueror gets defeated by a bunch of giant ants with lasers on their heads. And that was the end of the movie, essentially.
Freaking laser beams attached to their heads.
How are you building up this villain? Because every time we've seen him, he's gotten his ass kicked. And yeah, the person here, Ant-Man 3, is the same as Spy Kids. Yeah, if you've seen the memes, it's fucking true. Like all the shots that are just like shot for shot, exactly the same.
If you wanted the exact same plot, though, it's Tron Legacy. Like every single plot beat is from Tron Legacy. The premise is in Tron Legacy. The son of Flynn, Reed, son of Miss Van Dyne in the Ant-Man universe, is tricked down into the miniaturized realm where they discover that there is the villain who the original hero sort of met up with, shacked up with, did some work with, and was betrayed.
Yep.
The evil villain then creates a vast empire and plans to invade the human realm with this massive army, but they need the MacGuffin to open the portal, which will allow their vast armies to take back to the real world again. There's a fight at the end in which our original hero sees that the big bad is about to get to the portal, so sacrifices himself, and the portal closes. The family escape, and evil villain is stuck down there forever and defeated. Plot, there's more to it than that as well. I'm still working on a video
Yeah.
for this, and there's like a long breakdown of like just every single major key element in this plot is stolen. The only difference is aesthetic, but then.
But the thing is, it's like comparing like Star Trek Nemesis with Star Trek: The Wrath of Khan. Like the same basic idea, but one is clearly far better implemented than the other. You know.
Well, yeah, I mean, what's the major thing that differentiates Ant-Man, supposedly, anyway? It is the aesthetic. It's the quantum realm aesthetic, in which everything is kind of weird and amorphous, and it's very colourful, and it looks pretty, but then you compare that with something like Tron Legacy, which is a deeply flawed film, but nevertheless has a very, very clear design philosophy and a way of conveying a visual story, and where care and attention's been placed into how you make this world work. Ant-Man's is just, wow, it looks funny and weird. We're going to have the weird goop alien obsessed with holes. Flying manta rays, they also look cool. We need to go to a bar, which is definitely not the bar from Tron Legacy, to meet the evil guy, who's definitely not the evil guy from Tron Legacy. Also from Thor Ragnarok, which had a very similar kind of approach as well. It's such a derivative mess. But then the major problem is that we're not able to care about any of this because we've seen the story before, and then the only new elements to this is the reveal of Kang's multiversal domination plan, which is literally unfathomable. You have infinite versions of this guy in infinite timelines, destroying infinite timelines with infinite versions of our infinite heroes, who's trapped down here out of time, even though sometimes the film forgets that he's trapped down there out of time, but there's a timeline in which he was never trapped down there, so he can't ever stop. Like, what the hell are we supposed to be localizing here to actually understand what the stakes of this story are?
You think you're approaching this from the wrong direction. It's like, just consume the product and get excited for the next product. That's all the mentality that went behind this movie. It's just a self-contained story that you're not meant to think about too much. A bunch of colorful stuff happens on screen. You have a few laughs. You move on. That's it. That's all they wanted from this. And this is the thing that's meant to kick off Phase 5 of the MCU. It's Ant-Man was always the most low-level, disposable, forgettable protagonist of the MCU, and this is the guy that's meant to be leading the charge. It's bizarre. This whole movie makes no sense. It's like every Marvel trope, every cliche about how they make their movies is exemplified in this one film.
Do you remember an open bar of your long ago where you said it looks like Ant-Man's going to be kind of a serious movie? Looks like
I saw that trailer and I was taking
Don't
it.
be a dick.
Yeah, and then I saw MODOK with his fucking helmet.
Well,
like,
I
taken
remember.
off,
Wasn't
and
I just like, no way, no fucking way, it'll be a serious.
Yeah, you were right. You called it, man. I'll give you that one. Yeah, like an audible groan went up amongst the 12 or so people who were in my movie theater when MODOK revealed himself. It was just the most pathetic, ridiculous garbage.
You had 12
Imaginable.
people in your cinema? I didn't have 12 people in mine.
Hustling.
Literally 12, yeah.
I was on the second one for the day, didn't have 12 people in total, including me.
It's just,
was
well,
one
hence the box office totals.
It was
The
totally
highlight-
all over the place as well. Like, MODOK's reveal comes after we've just had a platoon-style gunning down of innocent natives, and then it cuts away to Ronald McDonald with a Gatling gun. It's so weird. Like,
It is
It's,
how am I
it's the
supposed to-
reshoots. It's the reshoots. That's what I heard about this movie. It was originally like the first cut of it was much more serious, much more like at stake. And Marvel stepped in and basically said, nope, we have to have the usual patented Marvel humor, because if people aren't laughing, then they're not enjoying themselves. And so that's what you get, these really awkward, tonally inconsistent shifts into comedy.
It's like rubber banding for emotions as well, in the sense
Yeah.
that you get just a slight little bit of leeway to say, well, this scene the audience is supposed to understand is serious, but it's not that serious, guys, because look, here's MODOK. And then later on you get, well, the entire multiverse is at stake and the guy's giant doom ship is launching and we're all basically dead. But, don't worry, guys, because, don't be a dick. That's funny. So just whiplash right back to the center again. There's nothing to latch onto or to care about in this.
Dude, this is
I could make the argument that like MODOK's existence is like a piece of David Cronenberg like fucking body horror.
Yeah.
And that like you've been transposed into this horrible alternate dimension where you're a giant head and your limbs are horribly malformed and out of sync with the rest of your body. And yet he's just it's played for laughs. It's like he's just chortling away. He's happy.
Dude,
He's
they have him coughing up, like practically vomiting up blood while laughing at him as he's dying after he saved the multiverse. I don't know what to like. It's not even about like saying it's bad. I just want to find the person who wrote this or directed this at the same time and be like, what do you think I'm supposed to do with this?
Yeah.
What did you want me to do with this? I don't know if I'm supposed to be like, oh, isn't it funny that he's dead? What? Like, why? And I think they'd be like, well, it's kind of funny, right? Because he says, haha, I'm an Avenger. Isn't that ridiculous? It's like, okay.
But yeah, it's like yeah, it'd be like if you tried to make a joke out of Darth Vader's death in Return of the Jedi. I know it's not the same level, but it's the same premise of like an evil character redeeming themselves
Yeah.
and sacrificing their life for a greater good. You know, that's not a joke. Like,
Because
that
I
shouldn't be
don't- that's the
laughed
thing.
at.
I think of him as a joke of a character. I don't get it. But you know, like the part where he says, you know, I don't really even know what I am. Tell me what to be. I was like, fuck, that's depressing, isn't it?
Mhm.
Tell me what to be. That's almost
And
existential.
asking like a 15-year-old girl what you should be when you're like a 45-year-old man is really pathetic.
Well,
Like, as if
but-
she's going to give you a coherent answer.
The thing is, they didn't go into it, but like, was he forced to be a weapon? Did he want to be? Were they trying to run with the idea that he loves power and so he's happy almost as MODOK? But no, not really, because he actually feels bad about killing everybody, or not? Did he really betray Kang because he hates Kang and he wants to like help save the world, or did he just do it on a whim? Like, I have no idea, because character work is non-existent in the fucking MCU at this point.
Yeah, because like you get that scene where Kang just like slams him against the wall and he's like crushing him with the force of his
For no reason at all.
telekinesis, which incidentally he never fucking uses when he's under attack by the ants. Like you
course
could
not.
just use that telekinesis to just like throw
Dude,
them
he-
away or crush them to death or something.
He beat two
But-
ant people in a fight by flicking them.
But then, how hard would it have been to show him doing that to MODOK, and then like he releases him, and MODOK just gives him a fucking look like, "Yeah, you're gonna get yours. Like one day, I'm gonna be like, you know."
That's the
I'll
thing,
be
Drinker.
more
That's
powerful
why
than you."
That's why that's even in there, is to help us figure out why exactly he would even turn on Kang. Because other than that moment, there's nothing. All we know is that Kang saved his life. So why would he turn on him? It's like,
Yeah.
well, you know what? He hit him once. Do you remember the nature of that scene? It's so weird. He's like, you know, Ant-Man, I need you to steal something. And according to MODOK, you're pretty good at it. And then MODOK says, yeah, he stole something of mine before. And then he just gets grabbed and thrown. It's like, what? He was prompted to speak. Why isn't he? And he's like, don't
Yeah.
speak while I'm in the room. It's like, why? Like, does that harm you in some way?
Yeah, imagine if that scene had opened with MODOK having taken matters into his own hands, like shown a bit of initiative and done something that Kang didn't want him to do, and then he
Yeah.
gets punished for it. It's like, okay, fine, you've established he's a bit of a loose cannon, and he's got ideas above his station, and that is the seeds of rebellion being sown there. But it's like, yeah, you get nothing like that.
Yeah, and you
That's
could have
because
done like a
MODOK
twist.
was Taika Waititi. It was Taika Waititi humor throughout the entire movie. Something which I think isn't funny. I don't know which like group of people Taika Waititi humor is meant to be funny, but it's not the kind of humor I identify with at all. And even as a movie itself, Kang in this, he's not a throwaway villain because he goes into the future. This is a Kang which has been exiled from every single other person because he was so dangerous. And he's like, I'm the only person that can save you from every single other Kang in existence, and you're the one that's fighting me.
Yeah,
This
and
is meant to be a major deal. It's not a throwaway movie that you can just ignore and carry on with the universe.
He's
at
coming
all.
back, apparently.
They're
that
saying
Kang.
this is his only chance. And so,
Because the director said, or the writer, somebody said that the reason we wanted him defeated this hard is because you're going to root for him a bit more after you see him go through something like that. It's like, what?
no.
And it's funny.
So
I was
what,
watching
this
Gary's.
particular Kang, like this instance, though?
Yeah, he's going to be back because he didn't get killed. He got sucked into the machine or whatever. I was watching Gary's video on this, and as you said just earlier, Draco, it's like he's been defeated twice already. I was like, he's been defeated 3 times, because if you count Loki, that's one, and then Wasp, that's another one. But then what about when he was defeated by his own Kangs? The fact that he got banished to this place, that's already, he was defeated then as well. And I was just like, what is with this? And Fringy brought this up when we were talking about on EFAB, but it's just like, it's an easy comparison. Infinity War, the introduction of Thanos to the heroes himself. He kills Loki, kills Heimdall, beats Hulk in a fight.
Yeah, I you know what I hate,
Pretty straightforward.
right, is multiple instances of the same villain. Because instead of making him more powerful because there's so many of them, it just dilutes that character. It was like exactly the same as in The Matrix Reloaded, where you've got like, you had Agent Smith from the first film, terrifying figure. You know, dangerous, sadistic, seemed to have ideas beyond his programming. Then you have like 500 of them trying to take on Neo in that ridiculous CGI fight scene where Neo's just throwing them around and like fighting off dozens of them at a time. that doesn't make Smith more frightening as a character. It makes him less frightening because you've just diluted him. You've made him weak individually.
You do,
But even in that, they boosted the agents so that they were the same threat as the previous movie. Now imagine if they'd made it so that even if you defeated all of those Smiths, there was just another universe where more Smiths would come out. That's the problem with the multiverse. Even if you make the most incredible enemy physically possible in your universe, it's still pointless.
Well,
there's just
I
more
think
of them.
the human mind needs a person, like an individual, to latch onto as like the personification of the antagonists or the protagonists or whatever. They find it quite hard. Like if you just have two CGI armies clashing with each other, it's harder to get invested in them because they're not individuals. They're just a bunch of things like getting pounded against each other.
Yeah.
And
I
it's the
think
same with
Matrix
Kang. Like
Revelations actually recognize that because it actually tried to re-establish a semblance of individuality to the one Agent Smith in particular. Because as you say, it recognized sort of this amorphous blob of badly rendered Agent Smith just isn't that interesting to people. But that being said, at least there's more thought that went into the reasons for mass-producing Agent Smiths. It is trying to represent the spread of a virus through the system. Whereas in I was about to say in Multiverse of Madness because they're basically the same. In what the hell was this? Quantumania, that's the one. No, there's no
They're all
equivalent thought
bullshit.
that goes
Who cares?
through with Kang. Like, why did so he wants to destroy the rest of the Kangs because they're messing around with timelines, causing incursions, and he wants to destroy them by destroying the entire timelines they were in, which is okay. So destroying a timeline is preferable to making a slight mess of it. Reasons they banish him down outside of time in the quantum realm with the Doom ship that he could theoretically repair to get back into time. Why are they doing that? Don't know. And then
but they damaged the core a little bit.
Damaged the core, which
fine.
he just fixed because he bumped into.
Were they
Ant-Woman.
hoping he died?
I don't know, but then why wouldn't
I
they have
don't
wiped
know.
out the timeline he was in? I was remembering the scene in Multiverse of Madness. Don't they kill the Illuminati? Kill one of the Doctor Strangers because even though he saved them from Thanos, he did so by messing with the multiverse, and that's not allowed. So they
Don't get me
killed him.
fucking
Whereas
started, dude.
the Council of Cringe, the Council of Kangs, they are solely concerned with their dominion over the multiverse, and yet the guy who poses the biggest threat to that, this exiled Kang, they just exile him rather than killing him. So the Council of Kangs treats multiversal threats to its dominion less seriously than the Illuminati, with a Doctor Strange who just randomly experiments a bit with the multiverse, which again just doesn't make sense for villainy stakes either. Like, it's so thoughtless and nonsensical, and it's almost just. No.
Is the premise behind it that if you kill a particular instance of a Kang, like it will give rise to like multiple other versions of him? So like it's actually better
it's
to
because
imprison him rather than destroy him completely.
when they exiled him, he was out of time. Like, the Quantumania is a realm outside of the time stream, so it wouldn't have affected. So they effectively removed him from everything.
This ties into like when we talk about like goals and stakes and stuff, like in terms of like what we as humans can wrap our brains around. Like Thanos had a pretty understandable motivation. It was like, I understand that there are finite resources in the universe, like living beings will eventually deplete them, and if they were allowed to endlessly multiply, and so my solution is that we prune them, essentially, we cull them to make them down to a manageable level. And, okay, fine, you can argue the merits of that and how long it can last and so on. But, like, there's at least some kind of goal there. There's an understandable goal. He's doing what he sees as a good thing. But, it's good reasons, but, like, horrible implementation. With Kang, what is his ultimate goal?
Destroy all the timelines except his own one.
It's
But
infinite.
why? What does that achieve?
To control
the
them
re-
so that they can't control him.
The
But then
reasons
why?
for him doing it.
Again, what is
What's that?
the positive goal for anyone?
There are
don't know.
infinite
The reasons for
timelines.
him
You
doing
can't
it-
destroy them all.
Yeah, the reasons for him doing it are as infinite as there are as many Kangs. It's like when you said we need an individual, I don't really agree. I think that you can sort of have third-party morals or implant abdicate your responsibility or your morality to a third-party institution, whether that be an institution or some kind of ideology. I think that's fair enough. But when you begin to contemplate infinity, no human mind can comprehend it. And that's where it falls down. It's not that he's not specific. It's that he's not specific in any way, shape, or form. He can't be nailed down in any universe at all. And so every time you take any action against him, it's pointless. We could have literally an infinite amount of movies, and Kang would never be defeated because there's just an infinite amount more of him.
And
Every
by the
single
same
action you
token,
ever take is point.
he would never win either. So it's an infinity of nothing happens.
To be
Yeah,
fair,
until they
this is
arbitrarily
what-
decide that he does.
To be fair, this is what Kang says in Loki Season 1's finale. He literally says all of this. He says it to Sylvie. You can leave me alone and continue what we've been doing infinitely, I guess, or you can kill me and we'll open up the multiversal war, which is originally what gave rise to the Kang we saw in Loki Season 1. All the Kangs fought until one won and controlled everything, and then he got bored. Like, so he basically says, like, I'll just come back, because that's all that happens. And it's gotten to the point where I'm just like, wait, so how are the Avengers, I assume, going to defeat Kang ultimately? If they've basically made him, they've embedded him into the timeline of this universe. Like, he'll always come back. What are you going to... And I say this as if they're not going to go, we need to find the book of Kill Gallagher dude. If we read it,
that's all going
They'll
to...
meet
It's going to come down to, like, a big punch-up, a sky portal, a magical MacGuffin that's going to, like, just reset everything so there's only one magical timeline that never gets deviated from. And that'll fix everything.
Or maybe
That's
a wish
all
at
it
the
is.
center of the universe. Oh, wait, Christian Bale already used that. Never mind.
Oh.
Did they even really want that, though? Because that would shut off their alternate, well, we can just bring back this actor whenever we want, kind of...
I
jail-free
think it's an interesting example though of as a writer, like raising the stakes to the point where they're incomprehensible. I think that's
Are you
where we're
raising
gotten
them?
to now.
Like,
What's that?
if you make an infinite amount of universes where your actors can come back
Well,
from death whenever you want, are you raising them or lowering them?
When you say that, like, we are fighting to preserve the entirety of all existence across time and space, like every possible multiverse of universes, I don't know how you can possibly top that. That is like it as far as like reality goes. It's
think
like
Star
Thanos
Trek
was
would
only
top
concerned about our own universe, and even then, you know, you're fighting for 50% of the life in the universe, the entire universe, and like we've gone beyond that.
Yeah.
Like we can't really top this. This is it.
By the way, can I just say the DNA for their fuckery was actually in Infinity War to Endgame, because you're highlighting like why we cared about Thanos. We talked about his introduction, you talked about his motivation. They fucked it up. In Endgame, we didn't even fight that Thanos. We fought different Thanos. We didn't even know who any of these people were. What a huge mistake that was. Endgame was a mistake in general, but still.
I hate Endgame. I've always hated Endgame as a movie. I think
Dude,
the
I
version of-
cared more about like Captain America: Civil War, like just Bucky Barnes versus Iron Man versus Captain America at the end. That had me more invested than any of this fucking garbage.
Oh,
Because
dude,
it's three
fucking
people
hate
with like
the multiverse
understandable
arc.
motivations for like fighting each other. Perfect. That's what I want.
Does it
For
make
me,
you more or
Infinity
less
War
invested
was,
to know that there are infinite versions of those three characters, and the fight pans out in
That's what
infinite
I think.
different correlations, and
And we
like,
can
none
see
of it
them all
matters.
if you
This
subscribe
is
to
where we
Disney
go with
Plus.
this.
It's
Once you
like-
open that door, there's no closing it. That's the problem.
Just from psychology, diffusion of responsibility, you know, if there's loads of people around you, you don't feel as responsible for an action because you just assume other people will take the action that you should have had, like phoning an ambulance or the police or something, means the same for this, that you don't care much about one universe as you do for the other. I cared more about Star Trek when there was literally a ship that went around trying to enforce one time frame than I did in everything else. It's like, okay, this is the time frame that matters. You've now done an incursion into this, which changes it, which is very similar kind of thing to what the original they were doing in Loki. Star Trek had a very similar timeline, but it mattered more that they were trying to reset it to the events that were meant to happen in the first place. I think where they messed up was having a guy that literally chose the timeline in the first place rather than having it with fate. And the moment you go to Infinite, you've now diffused responsibility across everything. So why should I care about any universe at all? Because it's just one in particular out of an infinite amount. There's no reason I should choose that over another one. And let's say these ones did go to war. Let's say only one of them could exist. And so you now have Timeline 3 versus Timeline 2000. Both of them have the same moral responsibility to exist. And so who am I supposed to root for?
Well, it precludes any kind of character investment because, you know, Thanos, no one really conceptualizes the wiping out of half a universe because we don't think on that sort of cosmic scale. But when you've got single iterations of our main cast who we've invested in and built up over the course of however many years phases 1 to 3 took, you can represent the cosmic consequences of Thanos' finger snap. Half the universe goes, but we see that in the loss of half the people we've grown up with and we've learned to love and all the rest of that. Whereas now, no, because how do we know who's dead. Well, no one's ever really gone anymore, are they? Because
Nope.
Wanda is theoretically dead, but you know she's going to come back. Any given character who dies as a result of anything that Kang does or any other character does could just pop back into existence from another multiverse. So what again are the stakes, and why should we care if, say, Wanda gets crushed in a Doom Temple? Because somewhere else there's another Wanda who will come back and save the day at some point.
This is what I mean, man. Like they've elevated the stakes and the scope of this to the point where it's now incomprehensible, and like they've opened the door on so much ridiculous plot contrivance nonsense that anything can happen at any moment. No character is ever dead. Anything can happen. Any like thing can come along to save you or ruin your day. What's the point? What's the point in any of this?
Though, that almost everything you guys have highlighted is even in best world scenario. Like all these problems would come in if it were well written, but we're not even close to that. Like it's a fucking diabolically, horrifically written thing, and it has all these problems with it as well. This is why like finding out that Ant-Man is actually like struggling to make money compared to the others, just like, oh, thank fuck, finally. Like it's
Ant-Man has
taken
a really good example of exactly the thing you're just talking about bad writing, and you know we're thinking about this now, and it's not hard to imagine ways in which this can go wrong, but the people involved don't even think about consequences. So in Ant-Man, we're told that the ants fell through a magical time portal and have developed a Type 2 civilization, which if you're a nerd, you'll know that the Type 2 civilization is like 3,000, I think it's 3,300 years in advance of where we are at the moment. So we've established that there's a Type 2 civilization of ants who are socialist because yay. They've got the ability to harness the entire energy output of a sun, and they basically do Hank Pym's bidding, and he can go in and out of the quantum realm, so he can advance human society by 3,300 years just by popping in and out of the quantum realm and bringing some ant tech with him. Are they going to mention this again? Probably not.
I love how Kang was completely unaware of these ants as well, like in their entire civilization.
Ask,
like,
what sun are they harnessing?
Good question.
no, just,
The
just
fucking
consume
quantum
product
sun?
more.
Like what? Why?
It's just like a guy's lamp in his
I
bedroom.
don't even understand
They're
about the
just
light
underneath
source.
it.
This is what I fucking hate about the quantum realm, and I think it was you, Mauler, who mentioned this first of all. It's like it might as well just be an alien planet because it has all the same rules as just a planet. Like it has gravity, it has an ecosystem, it has breathable air, like all that like stuff that's just like regular stuff. And yet you're in the quantum realm. Like I thought it was meant to be this mind-bending realm that exists outside of reality where nothing makes sense anymore because you're subatomic.
Outside of time and space, yet there is linear progression, and just you can walk just like normal. Like it's
And
like,
the
okay.
linear progression actually
time
matches the
progressed-
timeline of the real world as well.
Yes, time progressed linearly in both dimensions. Like how? Why?
How cool would that be?
How are there humans in this place? Is that
Imagine when
ever
they went
explained? I
down
don't know.
there, everything is experienced like in a weird time, not only looping but also like turning and twisting. And no, it's too creative. Got to stop. Never
And
mind.
wasn't the premise, I've not seen this film in God knows how long, so I might have forgotten, but wasn't part of the premise for the second Ant-Man film that if they missed rescuing Janet within like 2 hours, they'd miss her for 200 years because that's how time doesn't correlate. Whereas
I
in this
think
film,
that-
they spend 2 hours down there and nothing changes.
The first Ant-Man movie actually presented a more like existentially terrifying possibility of like because Hank Pym describes it as like she destroyed her regulator so that she could go subatomic, and then she was condemned to this reality of perpetually shrinking down ever smaller beyond like down into the subatomic realm. But it's like where all concepts of time, space, reality just melt away, and Ant-Man even ventures into it for a brief moment. That was terrifying because it's like it doesn't have like cities, it doesn't have gravity, it doesn't have like ground that you can walk upon. It's just this realm outside of existence as we know it.
They covered
That
that.
was
very good.
terrifying, but like now it's just like it's just a normal place that you can
They
go.
covered
You can
that,
go to a
remember?
bar and have a drink, you know.
When she said, "Oh, Hank, you silly muffin, you just didn't look deep enough." Yes, there's the void. Then underneath that, there's the subatomica, and underneath that is the quantum realm, where it's a civilization. Everyone's happy.
Yeah, it's like
What?
fuck off, fuck off, movie.
Yes,
Like-
exactly.
How do they breathe when they're smaller than the oxygen atoms that they would need to consume? Yes,
Fuck
who
you,
fucking
that's
knows?
Why. Well,
Yeah.
see, and that's the thing. I've seen people even say at this point that because he said you need the mask, you need the suit. That's how it all fucking works. It's like, yeah, you know what? Hank was just lying. Fuck it, whatever. Like you can
You
do whatever
realize
the
the
hell
actors'
you want.
faces needed to be seen. That was the problem there.
I think
It's-
the
yeah.
best explanation here is he kind of forgot about air. That's all it is.
Dude, it's so funny how those quotes just
You
never
realized
die.
he need not be a dick. That was the problem.
Well, speaking of
Oh
quotes that
God, I
never
hate
die,
these movies.
so this film begins by bringing back the blip. Now you can follow the entire sort of narrative of confusion in Marvel just from interview clips about the blip. The beginning of Phase 4, we're told Phase 4 is all about the consequences of the blip. Then by the middle of Phase 4, we're told, yeah, we're kind of done with that now.
Yeah.
And then by the end of Phase 4, it's yeah, we've moved on to something else entirely, and now we're at the beginning of Phase 5, and it's the blip again, almost as if they have no idea what they're doing.
Yep.
Or that this
That's
movie was
pretty
meant
much
to be
it.
in Phase 4, not Phase 5.
Or that.
Whoops.
I
I'm
just-
not even
I-
sure that's
I
an
love
event you
how-
could move past. Like
I
half
know.
the universe appears out of
Fuck
nowhere.
you, they don't wanna deal
don't have
with it.
food, you don't have houses, you don't have infrastructure. Everyone's got to start from scratch and like, yeah, we'll sort it out in a few years, it'll be fine.
No, like Disparu, you don't understand. Like, although Ant-Man saved the entirety of existence in the previous movie, like because there's still homeless people in San Francisco, he doesn't have anything that he can feel good about.
I also like the fanciful
What I-
suggestion that there are only homeless people in San Francisco because of the blip, as
Yeah.
opposed to the vast army of them that
Fucking
are
hell,
already-
when was
just
the last
not been
time you were in San
outside
Francisco?
recently.
Yeah. This is the thing, like, and it's always portrayed in the most like positive, like beautiful, shiny, clean light imaginable. It's like that's not the San Francisco that exists today, my friends. This is it. When you talk about like how to make a character likable, like I think with Cassie they did the exact opposite in this movie. She's like
God.
an opinionated, pompous, arrogant, like brat of a character. And she never gets the smackdown that she deserves. Like, all it would have taken was for Scott to just say, like, I fucking saved the world. Like, you can just fuck off for the rest of my life. You don't get to criticize me for anything. And, like, you're sitting here, like, moralizing with me. Like, what have you ever accomplished? Oh, yeah, you went to a protest march one time and got arrested. Big fucking whoop-de-doo. Let me break out the fucking bunting for you.
But no,
It's just
because
like, it's
he has
ridiculous.
to
Like,
learn-
why are
he
we-
has
why-
to learn from her. So you go down. His whole thing, even though his opening monologue is that I want to be a settled down family man now. I'm writing books about being nice to children or whatever he's doing. They've been back together for more than a year since the end of Endgame. So they've been together. He doesn't have a clue that his daughter gets arrested multiple times, even though the opening monologue is about him being a family man. And that's his purpose in life. But then, because the scene demands it, they decide he's got no purpose in life anymore. So she has to tell him off for being listless and directionless. They go down into the quantum realm. She wants to join the fight on behalf of the little people, and he says no, even though he's kind of right, because they only really need to escape this place, because otherwise the multiverse gets destroyed. But no, the lesson is his to learn. It turns out he was directionless all along, and Cassie was right, and the fight is theirs, and so now he's rediscovered his purpose again. Even though he had that at the beginning of the film, and the film just kind of forgot about that as well.
Can I also just say, like, can I talk about deflection for a moment in dialogue and how it boils my piss when characters do this? And it happens so fucking much in this movie. There's a bit early on where, like, Scott's not aware that his daughter has access to, like, PIM particles and, like, shrinking tech and stuff. Yeah. And, like, it gradually comes out in the course of their conversation that, like, yeah, she's been misusing that. And yeah, he basically, like, he realizes that she's has the ability to shrink things down. Like, she's a 16-year-old kid, and quite rightly points out, like, you shouldn't have access to this kind of tech. Like, what if it fell into the wrong hands? That was his question. Like, what if you lost it and someone nefarious got their hands on it? And her response is, "I didn't lose the suit, so don't worry." And that leads on to another conversation about, like, I didn't know you had a suit. But the point, like, the fundamental point is there, it doesn't matter that you didn't lose it on this one specific occasion. The larger point is, you're a teenage girl. You shouldn't have access to this world-changing, extremely dangerous technology in the first place. Just because you didn't lose it here doesn't mean you can't lose it next week. Or tomorrow or whatever, the next time you go to another protest march and get arrested. But it's like that just gets glossed over because the script has to deflect you away from that that uncomfortable reality, because that would be a difficult question to try and address. It's so fucking annoying.
We have to be fair and say this is not the most egregious aspect of deflection in the film, because that award has to go to Janet, who says, "I didn't tell you about interdimensional Mega Hitler because I didn't want to, because family."
You wanted to be
I
a
think.
mama.
I just wanted to be a mom.
Well, it's 'cause
Yeah,
it wasn't
no,
written
I'm
yet. That was
completely
the
with you
problem.
on the dialogue complaints. The one there's many that get me, including the ones that have been mentioned. But one of them is when they have their big family sit down, and basically they all make it clear they think that Scott is kind of slacking, doing a bad job, and they're all disappointed in him. Quite a significant character criticism, I would say. If I were him, I'd be realizing my whole family's disappointed in me for basically not helping people, and I'd be like, damn, a lot to unpack here. And he says, well, what have you guys been doing? And it's like, let's talk about our science project.
Yeah.
And then we go off for the plot, and it's like, guys, you just told him that you think he's like a piece of shit, and he's not doing enough to help people, and then he only cares about himself, and he's launching this book and all this stuff. And then you're just like, well, we're done with that. We got to show you our ant project, and then get sucked into the quantum world. Woo! It's just like, but what about that conversation?
But then it's like rapid fire stupidity, because it all happens so quickly, and you're into the quantum realm that, well, there's not time to circle back and like question all that stupid shit that happened before to lead up to this. Like, we're in the quantum realm now.
And she was fine with them exploring the quantum realm. She was only like, what, you're sending a signal down? No, you can't send a signal down because there's something I haven't told you, and then they all get sucked through a portal. But the whole idea of the daughter knowing better than the parents is something that's been going through entertainment and loads of other stuff recently, is the idea that you need to listen to your kids and they know better about the world than you do. Because, they've been through education, and so that means they've obviously been taught the right way to think, whereas you're quite old in the tooth. You're probably set in your beliefs, and so you need to listen to them. And that's just an idea that's been passed down for a long time at this point. And everybody knows intrinsically that it's stupid. The fact that, yeah, you're a 20-year-old, you think you know everything, and then actually, as you get older, you'll be like, actually, I didn't know anything when I was 20, so I should probably tell the people that are also 20 that they should probably listen to me as well, which is why every single person goes through the same phases of their life at the same point. Everyone thinks their parents don't know anything, and then they have kids of their own, like, actually, I should probably teach him what I was told when I was a kid in the first place.
I don't know what you're talking about, Disparate. When I needed advice for life, I always go to a 16-year-old activist that's never worked a fucking day in their entire lives. Clearly, they're the person that can advise me. You know?
Well, like, we don't get an interesting back and forth about how she's pig-headed, idiotic, and she's running into things she has no idea about, which is, by the way, I love to reference it because it's just such good shit. When Kratos is trying to warn Atreus in the God of War games that he thinks he knows what he's talking about with this war that he's just walking into, and then he realizes, like, years later, oh shit, all that we did was actually help the bad guys win. And then Kratos is like, you still don't even know who the bad guys are. Why are you even trying to, like, figure it out? You don't even care to find out. You're just going off what they look like. And in this film, she's like, oh, look at the plight of these poor rebels. We need to help them. And Scott makes like fucking 7 points in a row that are pretty damn valid. He's like, we don't know how time works. You need to get back to your mum. Who knows who these fucking people even are? We don't even
we don't understand the political situation here. It's like,
exactly.
Like, it's not our problem.
And she's like, you're just using it as an excuse because you don't care to help people anymore. And it's like, oh my god, I could punch you. Like, you're so stupid. And then right at the end of the film, we conclude the arc. You know what? My daughter convinced me to help people again. It's like, what?
But that is something that the film doesn't even, like... if you look at Star Trek, a lot of the times they will pitch an idea, and then they'll show both sides of it, and even if it's like...
Yes, remember that? Remember good sci-fi?
Yeah, exactly. Well, they'll pitch both sides of it, and then they'll end up, and they may even choose a decision, but by the end of the episode, you can still kind of make your own mind up. Well, but in this, it kind of says that Kang is right, but at no point did it ever really say, yeah, but what if he actually is? What if he is the only person that can save the multiverse, and sacrificing this entire realm for the multiverse is actually worth it? That's not even considered throughout the entire movie.
Yeah, imagine if that was a really difficult moral judgment that the main characters had to make. That would be an interesting story. But it's like, no, it just evolves down into, you're bad, I have to punch you until you're dead.
It's actually incredibly depressing, that very example. Imagine all these really complicated moral questions that you could be asking, moral decisions that have to be taken, moral stories you could be telling, and then Ant-Man next to Star Trek, Ant-Man gives you, don't be a dick.
I'm not going to defend Don't Be a Dick. I mean, that was stupid. But that came from one of the most pathetic characters in the movie to one of the most pathetic characters in the movie. So I would delete both of them.
Were there non-pathetic characters in this movie? I didn't catch any of them.
To be honest, there were so many different characters. I found it very difficult to care about any of them. It felt like the whole family. I didn't want. It should have just been maybe 2 characters go into a universe and explore things.
Well,
Like having the entire family there, I ended up not caring about any of them.
Michael Douglas might as well not have been in this movie. Evangeline Lilly might as well not have been in this movie. For all that they actually accomplished, like they might as well not have been there. And you would have streamlined the narrative, given us more time with the main players, you know. But then why call it Ant-Man and the Wasp when the Wasp does fuck all throughout the entire film?
Did plenty drinkers, just the other Wasp. That's all.
Yeah. It's just like I like Michelle Pfeiffer as much as the next guy, possibly even a little bit more. I've masturbated to her many times, but that's beside the point, right? I just feel like she's not meant to be a main character in this narrative. Like she's old, like, and she's not part of that current generation that's meant to be doing things. If you wanted to make a story about her, great, okay, fine. Give us like, you know, a movie focused on her as like the old Wasp that's returned to the real world and is having to readjust to things and gets drawn into other adventures and stuff. Okay, fine, I can live with that. But don't like sell her as some tertiary character who actually ends up being the focal point of the entire narrative.
It was needlessly done as well. I mean, any given Dungeons and Dragons game has a better understanding of character complementarity than this film does. If you've got Janet, Hank, and Hope together as like a whole arc just involving them, you've got Janet, who knows everything about this area. You've got Hank, who is incredibly technologically sophisticated and has incredible amounts of knowledge. And you've got Hope, who's young and fit and she can fight people. So the natural thing to do is that you divide those roles quite evenly between them. So if there's an action sequence, you defer to Hope because she can kick ass. If you need explainers, you go to Janet because she knows stuff. If you need something invented, you go to Hank because he can do that. But instead, this film just decides to roll every single character's skill up into Janet's character. So she does all the fighting, she does all the explaining, she does all the problem solving, the figuring out. And as a result, I think Evangeline Lilly probably has about 5 lines in the entire film and one consequential action.
Yep. I just kept thinking, you got your shitty haircut for this? Like, damn, girl. Like, yeah, you got shortchanged on this one.
And Michael Douglas is just the pilot throughout it for the most part.
And you could tell Michael Douglas as an old school actor who's used to like being in proper serious movies is like, I have to like shove my hands into this CGI fucking jello stuff and pretend like I'm controlling it. He just looks so uncomfortable and embarrassed.
You know for a fact that when they were on set and they had like the practical, because I think there's a practical version of that as well. They would have been like, "Isn't this funny? Isn't this hilarious?" And he was probably like, and he was like, "It's the meme. It's like I'm pretending this is retarded, but I mean it is retarded. This is all retarded." And it's like, "Yeah, but it's funny." And it's like, "Yeah, okay."
Well, I mean, it was that, and he got told that. Oh, by the way, while I was down here, I slept with everybody. That was like the entire thing with his wife. Well, like, I didn't even say loyalty. Yeah, I have needs. That was
Imagine if a man had said that. Like that would not be treated with the same degree of like acceptance that it is.
They had
here.
him say he went on some dates, but nothing could match up to her. Meanwhile, she just said, "Yeah, I just fucked some people." So
yeah, it was like I was fucking anything that had a penis down here. Like yeah, I was having the time of my life in the quantum realm. You know, it's like how's that cool? Again.
Like the dialogue there was odd. Like the payoff of that conversation is him going, "They just ate you, babe." It's like, okay. Yeah. Was that supposed to be funny? Or...
I don't know, because they built the entire story around it. That was why she didn't want to tell them about Kang. Because of all of that.
She could have skipped that part out, though. She could have just been like, yeah, well, I was down here in the quantum realm. I met someone who was like, this crazy scientist guy, and then I discovered he was evil, and I just barely got away with my life. Didn't sleep with him or anything. It was just like we were trying to get out together. That was all.
What do you think would have happened?
Yeah, whatever you do, don't go back down there.
That's all she had to say. It's just like, oh, it's really dangerous. There's really like scary shit down there. If it ever got into our universe, that would be like end of the universe time. So just let's just leave this alone.
Well, it makes me wonder about like what would have happened had MODOK needed another day to do the sucky power thing. Imagine that. So then she's like, "Don't do it." And they're like, "Why?" And she's like, "Well, yeah, I guess it's time to tell you. There is a psychopath down there who needs one of our shrinky-dinky devices, and as soon as he gets it, he can destroy the multiverse." And they're just like, could you imagine all their faces? Like, you are joking, yeah? And she's like, what? No, why would you think that? And it's like, You didn't think you should tell us about this? You fucking crazy. And then to top it all off, to make that enormous mistake, right, which they were aware of, they have those really shit lines like "I just wanted to be a bub," so they know it's really stupid. Then you have Ant-Man not tell the Avengers when he comes out. Are you kidding me? Oh, it'll be fine. When the whole movie's theme is that you don't look the other way.
It even gets worse, because it's not just that if they get your device, they can take over the... If they get to your device, they could travel through a time portal, improve on it for 3 or 4, 5,000 years in the future, and come back and absolutely just snap you out of existence. Because your technology will not even be slightly capable of doing it. Why nobody from that realm has not just taken over the actual realm in the first place kind of beggars belief. People will have existed in that realm for thousands of years already, which will be multi-trillions of years in their time. And at no point did they just enter into your realm at all.
Yeah, well, just because the ants have a Type 2 civilization doesn't mean that they have the genius of Cassie Lang to be able to build the portal to get themselves out of the realm. Only she could have done that.
Imagine...
I forgot they were socialists.
On the Janet point, I mean, I've been trying for ages to try and make this make sense. It just doesn't. So the whole setup is that, you know, Hope will say, we've been trying to get you to talk about it. This is way before any of the film actually starts. This is just them talking in the house before they go down to the quantum realm. And she's like, you just don't want to talk about it. I've tried asking you, and you don't want to talk about it. But you're building this device in your basement, and you want to get your mum to open up about her experiences there. Would you not maybe have just thought to show Janet the device you've been building to see if she takes an interest in that? And then, of course, as soon as you've done that, the film doesn't work, so you can't do that. So they're not actually that interested after all.
That was some cheating on the behalf of the writer. It's like, she doesn't want to talk about personal events that happened to her down there. Therefore, I will not tell her about the technology we're currently designing to map out the quantum realm. It's like, I know you tried to argue those two things are the same, but they're not even close, and Hope would know that. Everyone would know that. And why the hell did they keep it a secret from Scott? What's that about?
It was a surprise, Moa.
Why?
It was a surprise.
How can you tell me this? Because this is I hate these films. It's like, oh, Scott is taking a break and he's being a good dad. It's like, that's cool. And it's like, he has no idea what his daughter is doing with her whole life. Oh. So he's not really being a great dad then, is he? Or is she just keeping secret all of her hobbies?
It's probably the same reason why Thor never told anyone that he could just pass his powers on to an infinite amount of people whenever he decided. Like, there's that kind of thing. It's just, we thought it'd be good for the movie, and then in the next one we're going to forget it's even possible. There's no
I wonder if...
I love these films.
I wonder if a writer has the balls to actually acknowledge it, like to be like, "Hey Thor, why don't you give us some Thor powers?" I know. How can you possibly, dude? The
I suppose you could have an infinite amount of Thors versus an infinite amount of Kangs.
Well, hell, are there an infinite number of eternities now that can grant infinite wishes?
Don't even get me started. You know, it's funny. It's like they come out of this stupid realm, and then Ant-Man talks to Doctor Strange. He's like, "By the way, the ants have tens of thousands of years of technology ahead of us," and he's like, "Oh wow, so they probably like cured cancer and stuff." He's like, "Yeah." It's like, "Yeah, but they're socialists." It's like, never mind then. There you go. So you write yourself out of that.
I just love the fact that they compared socialism to like mindless worker ants
who
just like sacrifice themselves blindly for the
monarchy.
cause. It's like, okay, I don't think that accomplished what you thought it was going to accomplish there.
Why?
I was going to say as well.
Why the MCU? Stop. Give it up.
Yeah, just
You've
stop
done
doing
enough
this
damage.
stuff.
Stop it.
The only other thing I wanted to talk about briefly was we got a fantastic trailer for Peter Pan and Wendy yesterday, I believe that came out, and wow, we were treated to an absolute joy. Because I don't know about you, right? Peter Pan as a story, classic piece of literature, and then got made into a classic Disney movie way back in the 1950s. I really wanted to see a modern reinterpretation of it, and wow, we got it. Didn't we just? We have got
Boys.
We've got race swapped Peter. We've got the Lost Boys and girls, because girls could be stupid, idiotic, irresponsible morons too, apparently. And we've also got a black Tinkerbell. So superb. It's just like every laundry list of stupid shit that like a Disney modern remake of something would do is done here. I am just waiting for either Tinkerbell or what's her name, Tiger Lily, to have the hots for Wendy. and have a lesbian romance worked into there, because why not? We've done everything else at this point.
The thing is, I just looked up. Peter Pan is set in the 1900s in London.
Yes.
It's like, why are we rewriting history? At least stick to what history was, and then if you want to go, like, especially in Peter Pan, you have a realm where they can go to, time stands still, and you can come through to the modern day. Just set it in the modern day. Why do you have to go back and change the 1900s story for it in the first place? And even in the title, they've got, you called the Lost Boys? Like, so you know that that's going to cause controversy. You know that people are going to mention that, so much so that you put it in your trailer. Even want to try and explain it.
Well, I mentioned this in my my video that I made about this, right? In the book, this is actually explained and it's actually done as like a kind of subtle compliment towards women, like them being a bit more sensible and a bit more level-headed, because it's like the Lost Boys are like babies who fell out of their prams, apparently, when they were, obviously little tiny babies, and didn't get found by their parents. They became the Lost Boys. But Peter comments that girls are too smart for something like that to happen to them. And like it's the author
anymore.
saying like, yeah, girls are a bit more level-headed than that. But like we can't have that, because what we really want is just to show that girls can go on adventures too. That's the simplistic, retarded mindset behind this stuff now. That's all it is.
That's kind of the theme of Peter Pan, isn't it? It's a very male story to begin with, in the fact that we are people that don't want to grow up. Like, we want to stay kids forever, which is
I think J.M. Barrie was like quite attuned to like child psychology and stuff, and like what he was tapping into was this idea of boys, like girls tend to mature quicker than boys. They tend to become a bit more practical and a bit more sensible earlier than boys do, and boys live in that protracted period of like immaturity and just fun-loving, adventurous childhood a bit longer than girls do. And that's what he tried to bring across. That's why you've got the Lost Boys. That's why Peter Pan is the avatar of all of that, the desire never to grow up. Wendy has that same desire initially in the story, but like she grows beyond that and realizes that no, in order to live a complete, satisfying life, you have to ultimately grow up. You have to embrace the fact that you're getting older and you're becoming an adult, and all the responsibilities that come with that. That's part of life. She recognizes that, and she's the one who draws the other Lost Boys into that and brings them back to the real world. And it's only Peter who's left behind. And incidentally, Tinkerbell fucking dies after the events of the movie, because fairies don't live that long, apparently.
But I mean, even if you take that, I've heard multiple times, like, men don't really grow up; they just have more expensive toys. That's always been the case. It's like men will inevitably, exactly, like they just get better action dolls, or they'll just have RC toys that can drive up walls. They get drones that can fly around factories that cost a load of. Men like things. That's what we like, and so whether you like toy guns, you just evolve into real guns when you grow up. So it's always kind of the same. But if you do actually take it from the other angle, and you take it from the old that women can be Lost Boys as well, it is quite modernity kind of an angle when you think about it. It's like, well, we don't want to grow up. Well, what's growing up for that? Well, it would be having a family, having kids, moving on into the future, being responsible for yourself, rather than staying in a more childlike state where you can do whatever you want. I can kind of see it from that angle, to be honest. I think modernity in itself keeps people in a more childlike state. Everyone.
Well, it does, yeah. Because, well, it pushes this ridiculous notion that you can, you can carry on just being in your early 20s for the next 10 or 20 years. You can still be like partying your life away and just having fun, not planning for the future, not like thinking about settling down, starting a family or anything like that, even if like you're in your late 30s, early 40s. And unfortunately, like, the old biological clock eventually comes ticking, and you realize, no, you can't fucking do that. You can't just like live your life as if you're 22 years old forever. You eventually have to move on and grow up. But it's like you're sold this lie. So yeah, I guess I can see that fitting in with the modern idea of what life is for people.
But that makes it doubly strange that I gather, at least, that they are going, as you say, back to the 1900s to tell it, because all that is an argument for not to use it in the pejorative way, but updating for a modern audience. You can do new things with this story if you were to bring the story forward to the present day and draw the parallels between Neverland and the real world. And what are you really escaping from if you're going from place to place? Are you actually out of Neverland by leaving it?
Look what Hook did. Like the Robin Williams movie from the 1990s, that played on that very same idea of like, well, what happens if Peter Pan like grows up and goes into the real world, forgets like Neverland, forgets who he is, and just settles down to start a family and have a job and all that other stuff like that. But then that desire to reconnect with that childish sense of adventure and innocence, like that all plays into that movie. It does explore that stuff. So it can be done, but it's like this is set very much, this is just a retelling of the original story, or should I say reimagining.
Yeah, well, diluting, as you say, the core moral message. But the diluting of the sort of the male-female thing is an interesting point as well, because, you know, as has been mentioned, Wendy is kind of the moral center of the original story. It is actually, it's not a traditionally male story. The moral guide is a woman or a girl who grows up faster. She offers the wisdom that the boys don't have. She brings the boys back out of the fake world into the real world. Like, she's the one who drives the narrative along, and that's complementing the female character. And when you are diluting that moral message by turning the Lost Boys into boys and girls, you're removing the compliment the original book paid to women, which is an odd decision to make in current times, and I think is only attributable to the fact they probably didn't think it through, because you don't usually see modern media actively taking away a good quality from a female character, which they seem to have done in this one.
It just, to me, that just spells they probably had a lack of familiarity then. That must be it.
Well, I think it's the simple-minded desire to like portray men and women as being exactly the same and having the same capacity to do everything. It's like they would have seen it as like, well, the Lost Boys get to go on adventures and do lots of fun stuff, so we can't have women just being these like, you know, somber, serious forces for like change and maturity and stuff. Like, they have to be able to go on adventures and do all that stuff as well. I think that's as simple as the screenwriter's desires were on this one.
Yeah,
we have to show boys and girls being the same at everything.
If you were basing your story in reality to apply to it and apply some kind of real world morals, you would come out with the idea that what it means to grow up to be a woman is a different thing to grow up to a man, and you want different things, and that should engage in your story. Like, if you watch literally any kind of Korean drama, one of the first things that the women do is they will sleep with someone in order to get some kind of advantage or physical advantage in order to enable them to survive. Because that is one of the talents that you have that you can apply to your advantage in order to use the resources or the benefits you have to survive in a dangerous situation. They would never write that in Hollywood, because it'd be like, well, you can't do that. Well, I'll just make her so that she can fight as well as a man. You are changing reality in order to achieve the result you want, rather than writing a story about what reality would make happen in the scenario you're coming out. And so when you come to this whole idea of like women growing up, they can't have it where it's like, well, the inevitable consequence of growing up is that you would have a family and have kids and help all of humanity survive. It's like, no, I just want to do whatever I want, and whatever I do is equally valid as everyone else. They can't accept that there is a right way that you should exist in reality just to continue the human species. It's not possible for them to accept as a reality, so they have to change it, which makes it unrealistic to begin with.
Well, I made this point in my video, in that Wendy's she's not a physical powerhouse. She's not an adventurer. She's not a swashbuckler. You know, she is very much along for the ride in terms of like the adventure of the books. She gets captured by Captain Hook, and it's Peter Pan that has to come in and save her, which they will never fucking show in a modern Disney movie. They will never show a woman getting rescued by a man. No way. But anyway, the point being that her strength lies in her ability to evolve beyond being a child. You know, her strength is in her ability to recognize that eventually she's going to have to grow up. Like, part of life is developing into an adult and leaving behind your childish ignorance and becoming something more. And that's what moves her beyond Neverland. But like, I don't know how that same message is going to hit home in this, because like they're going to show her getting involved in adventures, being a swashbuckler, being a fighter, just like Peter Pan is. Where is her room to develop as a character? Because you don't give her that same room to stretch and grow.
I mean, well, this is just a guess, but I would imagine that she starts amazing but everyone doesn't believe she's amazing. And so as time goes on, she realizes how amazing she always actually was. And then once she realizes how amazing she was, that's the end of the film, when she truly becomes into her true amazingness by realizing that actually the strength within inside me, and I just needed to accept that I was perfect to begin with.
I wouldn't put it past them to do that.
I mean, it's been every single movie they've ever done for the last, 5 years.
Well, I saw that scene where she's fighting the pirates aboard the Jolly Roger, and she like puts up her sword, and like two of them swing at her, and she deflects both of their blows at the same time. And I just thought about Rey and Kylo Ren in that throne room fight scene in The Last Jedi. I thought that's the same exact shit that you're pulling here that you did there. You've got to have your strong female character kicking ass and taking on multiple men at the same time because she's that damn good. That's all it is.
And she'll be allowed to keep the moral lesson as well. I imagine they'll keep that aspect. She's the one who educates everyone. It's just that she doesn't have to rely on them while she's doing it. So she like with the Ant-Man example, and all good qualities get put into one character despite multiple characters needing them, the same thing will happen. So she's just as good a swashbuckling fighter, but she is also the moral center of the story who tells the Lost Boys that they're wrong about everything, and eventually they realize that she's right, and so they leave, and that remains intact.
Yeah. I also love the fact that, like, well, clearly they've decided to race swap multiple characters, and the amount of abuse that they're opening these actors up to is kind of terrifying, because inevitably there's going to be that backlash to this. It's like you've taken like a character like Tinkerbell, who was like portrayed as a blonde in the original animated movie. She was a redhead in the Hook movie. I think she was blonde again in like the.
Was she
movie
Julia
from the
Roberts in her Hook movie?
Yeah. And the movie, they did another one in the early 2000s. She was blonde again. They were trying to go for the same look as in the animated movie, and they've decided to make her black, which, you can for sure argue the logistics of that. Like, it's a fairy, it could be fucking anything. It doesn't matter that in that sense, but it's like the meta is impossible to ignore. It's just going to be the accusation, as always, like it's another lazy Disney modern adaptation where they've race swapped half the characters just because it allows them to score some cheap brownie points on
How come they
social
didn't
media.
race swap Hook and all the pirates? What's that about?
Well, they're
Yeah.
the baddies.
Because they're bad. Yeah.
I mean-
that door only swings one way, Moa.
My position with
Oh.
race swapping, as and always will be, I don't care about it as an actual thing in itself unless it affects the story. But the people that actually care about the races of characters care about it because that's how they got the job in the first place. That's the only reason they exist in the industry to begin with. That's what they got hired to care about this stuff. And anyone that actually cares about that thing will inevitably be bad at your job. You'll make a bad story because you are obsessed with something that doesn't affect the quality of the movie, doesn't affect the quality of the plot, the quality of characters. And so you are focusing on something which is entirely extraneous. And the only job you are actually hired to do is to make the thing worse. You care about something which doesn't affect anything. And that is your entire position in it. And so people can go, oh, you care about it. No, I don't care about it. They care about it. Because if you didn't care about this stuff in the first place, you would leave it how it is. The person that cares about it are the ones that change it. They think it's important, they think it's vital, and they spend so much effort on all of this stuff and the casting that they are willing to put the story, the characters, everything that matters about a movie to the side specifically for an issue which is entirely irrelevant.
But it's interesting because once they do change it, then they start saying, why do you care so much? Why does it matter?
Yeah. When
But it's
they are the
really
ones-
easy. But it's really easy to say that when you've gotten everything that you want, when you've achieved all of your objectives. Then you can start accusing the other person of being petty, and you can just say, "Well, why do you care so much? Why does it matter to you? Just a
The
little
perfect
change."
example of this was Velma. Like, they could have had the same voice actress and everything, but you changed the animation to match the voice actress. That's how much you cared about the race of a character to begin with. You could have kept Velma exactly how it was, had the same voice actress, no one would have cared. But you were the ones that thought that that was the most important thing about the entire thing. And I think if you care that much about something, everything else is going to fall to the side because you're focusing on the wrong priorities.
Yeah, and the Rings of Power is another good example of that, is in the way that it doesn't have a mind to the sort of the contiguity of the actual thing you're creating. So if you're going to introduce a black elf, for example, knowing what we know about the elves and their society and how they live and how they mix, same thing with the hobbits, that's fine, but then you would have to make every elf of his faction black, or all the hobbits of the faction black as well, because that fits the character of the places they are depicting, which I'm not necessarily opposed to at all. But as you say, because it's very much an outward facing thing. It doesn't really have much regard for the story. It's not an artistic proposition. Representation very rarely is an artistic proposition. It's what can we bend art to now? What social program are we trying to push today that we can best represent using this particular story? That doesn't create good works of art. The only other thing that sort of pisses me off about it is that I get a bit tired of being told that this is all fine by the same people who spent the last decade complaining about cultural appropriation. I don't like hypocrisy very much. Decide which of these things you want. Is it acceptable to adapt things from other cultures, or isn't it? If it isn't, then you have no business doing this. If it is, which I tend to think that it is, I think cultural appropriation enriches humanity, then fine. But then you can drop the complaints you've been making for the last decade about how it's evil.
I think that's what
that whole worldview, it just involves holding multiple like conflicting views in your head at the same time and just embracing all of them. Like, and whatever one's the most appropriate to your situation, that's the one that applies.
Well, that's what happens when your worldview is based upon power dynamics rather than principle. You will say whatever you need to in order to gain power over your opposition, rather than have a foundational principle in which all your other beliefs are based upon. But I think when it comes down to this idea as a whole, people aren't complaining about it because they have a problem with it in and of itself. It's because it tends to be a signifier that this will produce trash, because it is a signifier.
Yeah.
Because that's what you care about the most. You don't care about everything else that actually matters, and you produce awful entertainment. And so it's not that it's a problem objectively in and of itself. It's just that we know where this road leads. We've been at it multiple times before. It happens every single time. And it's a problem with your hiring practices rather than actually what you're creating entertainment from.
Yep. I'm loving all the Kang memes that are doing the rounds in chat, by the way.
Someone in my comment section the other day referred to the
kiss,
Council
Kang,
of Kangs as a Kang bang, which I'm going to have to steal, I think, for my video.
In the mouth of Kangness, fair play. Kang Devil born again. Cactus Dallas. Anyway, well, we've got a whole bunch of super chats that came in while we were doing this stuff and just ranting away. So, should we see if we can do a few of them before we sign off for the night?
Sounds good.
All right. So, the first one that came in here was from Joshua Levesque, one of my mods, who said, "Hail everyone. If there is the long man, there must be a short man. Who is this short man, and what will be done about his crimes against the long?"
Just find out where he is and we'll long him.
I mean, the past couple of videos I've done have been sub 10 minutes. Does that, like, offend your sensibilities, Mauler?
Maybe it balances out. I don't know. Maybe it's okay. I'll decide later.
Okay.
What's like TikTok to Mauler? Quantum Man. It's like that's his quantum realm.
It's like the Mauler plushie behind me will just start stirring inside his little cage. Like, God, no, he's getting angry.
You know, you could have talked about that scene a little longer, Drake.
Joshua Vesk also says, anyone seen Cocaine Bear? And if so, what are your thoughts on it? I haven't seen it yet.
I haven't seen it.
No.
I need to see it, though, because it sounds good.
I mean, the reviews I've seen of it seems to be, it's like, range from it's a comedy that isn't funny to it's probably not worth the money. So
I've heard a few people say that it doesn't play up its sort of fundamental B-movie-ish enough. Like, it does treat itself like a serious attempt at a comedic film, as opposed to, we know this is incredibly cheap and silly, and that's itself quite funny. Although, I mean, it spawned this entire genre, hasn't it? Is the Meth Gator thing coming out? And so you could have some kind of monsterverse in future where you just get all these drugged up animals together and they combine
hilarious.
like the Avengers and they have to fight off some extra dimensional threat.
Like an alien that's high or something.
Yeah.
That's the thing. When you release a trailer, the trailer should represent your movie. And the trailer is very much, this is a spoof. So they pitched the movie as if it was a comedy spoof. And I've seen a lot of people go, well, there's too many people in it and not enough bear. It's like,
I think
I want Methadone Predator. It's like,
exactly.
gunning for
the
that.
villain in any monsterverse of drugged up animals is going to have to be something like Captain Come Down, though, isn't it? It'll be like the antithesis of their fundamental nature.
Yeah, like ultimately they get punished by being locked in a rehab facility or something. It's just like going cold turkey, losing their minds.
I mean, I want
Dude,
the
the
bear to
cold
go
turkey,
out.
that could be the villain. It's a giant
Yeah.
cold turkey.
I want the bear to be trapped in like a room somewhere and he's just like surrounded by guns. He's like, oh, I'm gonna go out. It snorts one more life, just goes out in a blaze of glory.
Or the big twist at the end,
it's-
they all wake up and realize they're just a bunch of stoned furries.
Yeah.
That
It's
could be
it's
it.
always been my dream in life to go out like the Scorpion from Predator 2, who just snorts an entire fucking
Yeah.
like container full of cocaine. Ah, the Scorpion
go.
is ready. That's how I want to go. Jade Light says, "Yo, Drinker, just finished Horizon Forbidden West now. Loved it. Was less disappointed by the ending than you were, though it's obviously sequel bait. Really fun and awesome. Yeah, I mean, I think for a game that actually put a lot of effort into its backstory and world building, the finale was weirdly rushed and kind of came out of nowhere, and I was a bit disappointed by it. But yeah, overall, I really enjoyed Forbidden West as a game. I thought it was a great, fun experience, much like Zero Dawn. I don't know if anyone here has played it or knows what I'm talking about here.
I've played Zero Dawn. I really love the world. I just don't like the game. It's
Right.
I love all of that sort of post-apocalyptic stuff and the depth they go into, as you say, and the aesthetic is lovely. It's just that the game. I've only played the first one, Zero Dawn, is that, and it was good for a while, but then it just becomes like do I really need to be handheld by having my enemies like patrol routes just mapped out for me so I don't have to actually encounter any kind of risk? And yeah, it just sort of
Yeah, the focus does help you out quite a bit, maybe a bit too much at times.
That's my problem
like-
with a lot of modern games. Like when you get into the wall hack territory, it's like this was literally a cheat that you're now building into games. I have the same problem with Hogwarts Legacy. Revelio is basically wall hack for what should I do now? I'm not sure that's my kind of thing.
That sounds like something a muggle would say.
Probably.
Chucksenhausen says, "Just here to say that Creed 3 is nothing without Rocky." I mean, I'll have to take your word for it. I haven't seen Creed 3 yet. I'm probably going to go see it, though, because, you know, I've watched the previous two, and it's part of the Rocky universe, but I know he's not in it, so it'll be interesting to see how it can stand without him. My guess is maybe not that well in terms of box office. Taker610 says, "Drinker and Mauler, will your enthusiasm be greatly diminished if Jackson and crew are not involved in these new Lord of the Rings films? Modern audiences."
Dude, my enthusiasm will be diminished if he is involved. I don't want any new stuff anymore, okay? But I guess I prefer him being involved than not, yeah. So
I think if he was given a good amount of time to work on it, like he did with the original Lord of the Rings, they could probably come up with something pretty good. Because I don't doubt his dedication to producing a really satisfying end product.
we'll see.
It's also what
You know.
what do they have the rights to? The rights situation with Lord of the Rings is incredibly convoluted because they were bought by that video game distributor whose name begins with E, but I can't remember, which is the company that owns the
Embracer.
company that fired
Eraser?
the journalist for. Yeah, I think Eraser owns the company that fired the journalist for liking Hogwarts Legacy as well, which is not like great, but there's some debate and discussion because they were given the rights because Warner didn't prove that they had anything in production at the time, which would allow them to keep them. So then the rights seemingly were allowed to be bought. Warner then announces the War of the Rohirrim, which there is a theory which is that it's only really been pushed forward because they needed to show they were still working on it. And so I think there's a legal wrangle now as to whether or not the rights transfer was legitimate because Warner is still or is now actively working on the things which was the basis for them getting the rights in the first place. But that could be a complete misread. But from what I think I read, that's roughly where we are.
I can only go off what Fellowship of Fans has said. But they said that basically there's been like a non-compete agreement, so they're not going to do the Second Age. The Silmarillion and everything is still held by the Tolkien estate, so they can't do that either. So they're basically left with the Third Age kind of stuff to mess around with. And that's with movies and games and stuff that they can make.
Fair dues. Mr. Lucas says, top 3 MCU movies and bottom 3 gents. So, damn, I guess we just maybe go around the panel and ask each of you, what was your top 3 and bottom 3 movies in the MCU?
Oh, so easy bottom 3 would be MOM, Quantumania, and Love and Thunder. Should we do them first? Go around the horn on that.
Yeah, sure. I don't know. I can go next. Bottom three would probably be Multiverse of Madness, Black Widow, and Captain Marvel, I think. No, actually, no. I'll take Multiverse of Madness out and put Eternals in there as the worst. Platoon?
Cheap, quick answer is whatever the last 3 films released were, because that's sort
I
of
think
the
that's-
general trajectory.
Oh, so Wakanda Forever, Love and Thunder, and
Ant-Man.
Quantumania. I think that would be those 3.
Yeah, I'd probably swap. Wakanda was terrible, but I would probably swap that for Multiverse. I think.
Wow, you copied my answers.
Sorry.
You're the worst.
Yeah, but I got there in a much more convoluted way, so it's different.
You did it. You know what? I liked it.
Platoon?
Yeah,
Sorry,
Ma-
Disparu. What about you?
Mine, I've not seen either of the Wakanda films. The ones I saw were the ones I was
Wakanda
interested
films.
in. Yeah. I've not seen
It's
either
just
of them.
there's a Black Panther films, but yes, no, that's fine. It's just funny because
Literally, the way I watch the movies is like, okay, here's a superhero. Do I like his superpowers? Yes, no, watch, yes, no. That's basically how I judge them all. Because I don't come from a comic background, so I don't know any of the characters really until they're introduced into the movie realm. I would say Multiverse of Madness is probably my biggest disappointment, simply because he's my favorite character, and I hated what they did to him in that movie. Thor: Love and Thunder was awful, and Captain Marvel, it's just a terrible movie. That was the one I care least about out of the entire area.
All right. Mauler, what's your top 3?
Right. I should have been thinking about it this whole time, but I was listening to those answers, you know. So I'm gonna put Avengers 2012. Probably. I'll go with Iron Man and Civil War as a 3.
Okay, that's fair play. Yeah, Iron Man would have been one of my picks. Probably Infinity War and toss up between Civil War and Winter Soldier. You know what? I'm gonna throw another one in there and say No Way Home for my top 3. Platoon.
I'm gonna go. Ask me again tomorrow. The answer will be different, but probably Infinity War, Winter Soldier, and Avengers 2012. I think.
All right. And Disparu.
Yeah, I would say Infinity War is easily my favorite movie out of the entire thing. Iron Man, and then I don't know whether to go for another Iron Man movie or any of the Avengers movies is good. It'd be one of the other Avengers movies. I'd have to probably watch them to choose properly. I will say Endgame. I can't stand Endgame. And I know a lot of people choose Winter Soldier. I think the S.H.I.E.L.D. TV series did the story of the Hydra reveal far better than that movie, so I can't stand that movie either. The first season of S.H.I.E.L.D. did the Hydra reveal so much better as it built up to it, and you actually cared about the characters a lot more than walking into a bunker and going, "Oh, there's Hydra. Oh, is the Hydra here? I better go and stop Hydra then." That's probably a great example of why I prefer TV series over movies, actually, now I think about it, is the reveal between those two things.
Out of curiosity, Lil Platoon, when was the last time you watched Winter Soldier?
To be fair, quite a long time ago. So
I'd be curious to know what you think about it if you rewatched it recently.
okay. Well, that's a challenge. I might have to go. I'll go and have a look.
I know EFAP have torn it a new one.
I don't
I've
know
got
what you're talking
fondness
about. It's like one of our least popular opinions, I think. Chat right now are about to get shocked.
Yeah. You've ruined yourself, Mauler.
They walk into a bunker, he goes, "Oh yeah, Hydra exists." He's like, "Oh, I better stop that then," and then
Dude,
walks off.
Winter Soldier is filled with garbage writing. Okay, I won't say anything else. I'm sorry. I don't want to tank the
Yeah,
stream.
that's the tangent we don't have time for right now. RRTNZ says, Hail Drinker, given this week's extra helping of entertainment sludge, isn't it time to look on the bright side? Cobra Kai, Dodgeball, Airplane, Black Sails, and Justified are calling you mate. Cheers. Well, they are indeed. Cobra Kai in particular, because not trying to brag or anything, but I got to meet Johnny Lawrence from Cobra Kai, so that was a nice experience. But yeah, there's always good things that you can talk about. I guess that's what happy hour is for. But we have to talk about the things here on Open Bar that are relevant at this time. So Hey, that's what we got. Andrew McCarthy says, thoughts on Green Lantern, Ghost Rider, and FF? I'm not sure.
Oh, Final Fantasy?
Nah, it can't be Final Fantasy. It's got to be a comic book thing.
Fast and the Furious?
That's well, you could probably argue that's comic booky.
Fantastic Four?
Probably, yeah. Yeah, it makes more sense. Green Lantern didn't like the original movie, so didn't like that. The Ghost Rider movie with Nick Cage, thought it was goofy as fuck. And Fantastic Four, like, I don't know. Are you talking about the Josh Trank one or the first two movies? Like, either way, none of them were particularly good. So yeah, I guess that's where I sit. Fantastic Four wasn't. It's not been well served really in cinema.
No.
Nuclear Trash Panda says, "Hey Drinker, saw your epic photo with William Zabka. Did you invite him to a VIP lounge stream? Prost from Austria and keep on doing what you do." No, I didn't actually invite him because I only had a very limited amount of time with him, so I got to talk to him for a couple of minutes and got a couple of pictures taken, and then it was time for me to fuck off so he could get back to signing autographs. But yeah, I didn't think I wanted to try and plug open bar or whatever to him. But hey, if he's ever open to doing it, that would be pretty fucking cool. He was a nice guy though, I'll say that. Cozzy says, your opinion on Matthew Vaughn, Kick-Ass, X-Men First Class, Kingsman. In my opinion, he's one of the underrated directors in Hollywood. Do Gladiator Happy Hour. So yeah, Matthew Vaughn. What do we think about him, gentlemen?
I'm
Kingsman
inclined to
is
like his
awesome.
work. Yeah.
Yep. Well, yeah, I like Kingsman.
I need to see the new
Kick-Ass
Kingsman. I
is
still haven't seen that.
Yeah, it's alright. It's not as good as the first one, but it's pretty good. Yeah. Kyle Kernan says, how many bad remakes till Disney learns to stop? Never. They will never stop. Doesn't matter to them. They'll just keep going. JK Fozo says, given your status as the drinker, this may be a silly question, but have you ever heard the song One Bourbon, One Scotch, One Beer by George Thorogood? I don't think so. No. Sorry, man. Antriv Singh says, Anthony Hopkins posting about NFTs all day. The world really is in a piss poor state. More.
Yeah,
How do you feel
that's
about this?
that was sad because for a fact he doesn't know what he's doing with them. That's probably
I think,
like it's
well, it's not even probably him posting, is it? It's like his assistant
yeah,
or something.
and it's probably an agent that said like, no, trust me, these are the cool new things that everyone's trying to get in on. Trust me, Jimmy fucking Fallon is in on it. Brie Larson is in on it. You know, it's the cool thing for all the kids. So it's like, fuck off NFTs.
Well, if you can't
Yes,
respect
fuck
Brie
off.
Larson, then who can you respect? That's what I say. Unhinged says, I love you, but Backfrog9NG, if you can find it, drawn by a virtually blind guy. What? Okay. Must be a piece of artwork, I suppose. Grimnack28 says, Hail, recommend VGHS Video Game High School. Great YouTube history, corny, but the acting is great in the third season. Any of you guys heard of that? Video Game High
I've
School.
heard of it. Not seen it though.
No, I've not.
The Outcast Creative, that's one of my mods there, who says, Hey Drinker, wanted to thank you for the Twitter shout out, nearly at 2,000 subs. Your support means more to me than you will ever know. Cheers, Lance. Ah, thanks, man. Yeah, I was able to get him over 1,000 subs so he could get his channel monetized, so I'm glad he's doing well now. And yeah, if you guys here are watching this, give a little chance to the Outcast Creative and sub to them, because they got loads of showbiz interviews with actors and stuff that have been in the industry for a long time, and they do good stuff. So give it a thought. THX1138 says, Hail Drinker, it was an honor and a pleasure meeting you at Atlanta Comic Con last weekend. I enjoyed the panels and enjoying Dark Harvest. I hope you had a good a good time visiting and a nice flight home. I absolutely did. The whole weekend was great fun, and yeah, I made it home in one piece with a whole bunch of bottles of whiskey that people gave to me. So yes, win. Yeah, the Comic Con's a good fun, man. I like it. Big Dave K says, out of curiosity, could we talk you into playing and streaming Deep Rock Galactic? I think you'd love the game. I asked before, but I think YouTube deleted my super chat. Oh, sorry about that, man. But yeah, what is Deep Rock Galactic?
Your dwarf and your mine stuff, I think, but it's like a co-op thing.
Been out for a long time.
People
Like,
have been asking you if you
literally
have to
mine
play
your
it
way
forever.
through the environment and stuff. Fight off
Okay.
enemies as you go.
Well, like Minecraft.
Kinda.
Like, I
Okay.
mean, it's underground, but you can kind of cut your way through the environment to the location. I've seen people play it. I've never played it myself.
Okay.
It's supposed to be really good. The people that play it really enjoy it.
Apparently, cool people play it. So.
Oh, well, I
Fair
can't
enough.
do it then.
Oh.
AB Coates says, went to the cinema last weekend. Instead of Ant-Man 3, we watched Cocaine Bear and had a much better time. Remember, there are always good films to watch instead of the woke trash. That is very true, yeah. Guess we need to just...
Am I right in thinking Cocaine Bear knocked Ant-Man 2 off the top spot in
Yes.
Ant-Man's third week? So it's
Well,
not even...
I don't think it like made it not be number one, but it's more like it got more than Ant-Man 3 in one particular day. Like
Yeah,
its
like
debut
the-
day.
What we know is that there is probably a not tiny amount of people that thought Ant-Man or a bear on cocaine. I'm gonna go with the bear.
That's not even a decision, is
I know,
it?
I know that's what I see.
I want basic story integrity and attention to detail and characters and world building. So yeah, I'm
gonna go for
definitely going for
Cocaine
Bear.
Or here's the real question: Ant-Man or just an actual line of cocaine? Yeah, I know.
The cinema
Off a
offers that.
bear.
Yeah. Taki17 says, tell Tatiana to finish up so that you could start already. Yeah, sorry, man. We were a bit slow starting tonight. David Lamplow says, thoughts on the latest Last of Us episode? I personally thought it was super weak episode, badly written and acted in an otherwise good show.
Wow,
I'm
badly
one episode.
Because I think it's the weakest episode so far, and there's a couple of writing issues I took with it more so than usual. But I thought the performances on both the girls were pretty good.
I'm one episode behind, so yeah, I need to watch that next. I didn't love the previous episode though. I thought it was very slow paced, and yeah, just kind of want the show to start doing things now, moving the narrative forward, giving us a bit of action, some events, something. Yeah, the pace of it is just like glacially slow right now.
It's because they keep going over to other characters, which have nothing to do with the main storyline.
Well, I think there's a reason that like the Left Behind storyline was like a DLC that was outside of the main narrative because they knew that it was going to distract people too much. So like the idea that they put it into this show doesn't seem like a great idea.
I'd say the better thing to point out, Drinker, is that the Left Behind DLC is split half and half between the girls doing fun relationship things and Ellie killing lots and lots of infected and bandits, if you remember. It goes back and forth, back and forth. They split it like 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes. Obviously, the show does not do that. So it's a full 50 minutes of the two girls having fun, talking about things. And it's like, oof, this is going to test audiences' patience. I would say that much.
This was an exception. Generally, I'm more interested in what it's doing with its secondary and tertiary characters than with its main characters. I think episode 3 is a really good example, not of an irrelevant storyline, because like lots of people have said that didn't impact the story in any way. To me, that was quite obviously sort of Joel's narrative foil. So episode 3 is about Joel, but through the eyes of a different character, his idealized old future, basically. And that was really good. I've been waiting for it to do something like that again, but it hasn't. And this episode, it's like feels superficially similar, but I don't think it achieves anything like as much. The side characters are fun, and I like, it's quite heartfelt. It's well acted, it's well performed, it's well meaning. It's just not doing anything for me, which is annoying.
Is it because
you
it's
ask
trying to
what
hit the
people-
same beats as like as episode 3, like a doomed
No,
romance,
it's,
like amongst the apocalypse that ultimately ends in people dying?
It's the same point as the game makes in that DLC, which is that Ellie, through past events, is very much drawn into a position of she will do everything she can to stop people she loves from perishing, or at least enjoy every last moment possible with them. I think they achieve the job of the story with Riley. That's what Riley tells her. That's like one of the last things you see between them, and then of course it intercuts with her and Joel, being that she will not let Joel go. Like she'll do everything she can to save him, and of course she does. So like the point survives, and I think it's well adapted enough. It's just I wonder about its position. I wonder about its viability in the form of pacing. I will continue the show, but I'm not going to lie. I can understand how so many people have dropped off. It's not a surprise.
If you ask people what they liked the game for, what do you think they'd respond? Like, what reason do you think people liked the story?
Joel and Ellie.
Yeah, it was the father-daughter dynamic. Lots of people said the same thing about various different movies and stuff. It is that dynamic specifically, and so now you've made a TV series where that's on the back burner. You're caring more about other characters rather than what people played the game for. And I know it's the same with Halo. It can come across when you're a gamer, especially specialized in like Xbox or whatever. That's a massive IP. Most people haven't heard of it. If you don't own an Xbox, you've never really played Halo. Not been on PC very much. If you're PC gamer, you're not really playing it. If you're PlayStation, you're not going to play it. Your average normie, not going to play it. Same with The Last of Us. If you weren't into the PlayStation, it's just another TV show. And so you're now removing the main reason why people like the games from the TV show itself and expecting it to still hold up as a TV series. Like, it seems like an incredibly risky strategy to me to try and do.
I'm very curious how 8 and 9 are going to go, especially because of what they're adapting. But it'll be interesting to talk about it as a whole.
I tell you, man, they're sending Joel further and further down this path that I don't like. With episode 6, where he's having panic attacks and shit, it's like you're setting him up as a weak-willed, emotional, unpredictable character, which is not what he was in the game. And like, I'm fine with deviating from the game narrative if you do it in a way that improves the overall story, but that's not what they're doing. It feels like it's to its detriment. Yeah,
he isn't going to be weak-willed. I can see he's much more emotional, but he's going to go Punisher mode in the next episode more than likely.
I mean, at the very end of episode 1, you had him. He already saw. It's like, oh, you remind me of my daughter. And rather than fighting the guy when he immediately pulled out the gun, which is what Joel would have done in the games, he waited for him to point the gun at the girl and then charged him, so he would have already died, and then completely lost control because he was an emotional wreck rather than some kind of stoic masculine man. From episode 1, he already wasn't Joel. And I got so many people going, this isn't true. And then since after that episode, more and more people go, actually, okay, maybe this isn't the Joel from the games. And it's getting worse and worse. It's like,
they're right. They are right.
Yeah.
This is the Joel from the second game. I don't know why people think it's
going to improve. Like, you saw the change from The Last of Us 1 to The Last of Us 2. This is now the TV series continuing The Last of Us 2 into the TV series realm. And somehow you think it's going to improve? No, it's going to continue the changes that happened between the games. Because it's Neil Druckmann, which is doing all of them. But, I did like this. I never did.
The most interesting characters were the Native Americans. I loved them. Like how they just did not give a fuck.
I like them a lot too. I still won't concede this Joel is as bad as Last of Us 2 Joel. I still think Show Joel is better than that Joel for now.
Yeah, but it feels like he's on that path to become that Joel.
If they do it, that'll be a huge mistake. But hey, I wouldn't be surprised if they did it.
Well, they have to. Like, you know where this is. Whether you think it's good or not now, they have to continue with that.
Yeah, I don't think.
Also, a lot of people have shat on this show for deviating from the source, right? So if it depends in what ways and how you deviate from Last of Us 2, you could improve it.
Yeah, it's the eternal Last of Us paradox. No, how dare you deviate from the source? No, how dare you deviate from the source? No, how dare you deviate from the source? No, please deviate from the source massively, please.
Yeah, I think you could boil it down to something really simplistic, where it's like everyone universally loved Last of Us 1. Okay, be as faithful to that as possible. Everyone, like, who really matters.
You're about to say everyone hated Last of Us 2, aren't you?
Most people who actually are good judges of narrative hated Last of Us 2, in which case, deviate from that as much as you want. Like, just, give that a wide berth. But, like, they're not going to do it because that would be acknowledging that game was not good in terms of narrative, which I don't think they would have the balls to do.
It's because it's like I said about race swapping. It's not the sign that matters. That is the sign of the people behind it involved. If you want to do this, is a sign that you actually don't have the talent to do the rest of it. the people that want to alter what the source material is are also the same people that don't have the talent to change it in the first place. A lot of the time, it's not the surface problem which is the biggest issue. It's what that shows about the motives behind the people creating it. And so if you take somebody else's work and your first impression is, I'm better than them, I know better than them, I'm going to take this massively popular IP and change all of it, rewrite it from scratch, and come out with something better, you're an idiot. You have absolutely no idea what you're doing. You have no concept of your own limits and capability. You don't understand the reason why that was beloved in the first place. You would not be working on that if that wasn't beloved by enough people that it would make them inevitably better than you. And so it's not that you want to change something which is the problem. It's the fact that you not appreciating that you shouldn't change it in the first place is what makes you incapable of improving.
I totally get what you're saying. However, if they hired you to adapt The Last of Us 2, I would fucking hope
I would do a
you
terrible
say,
job.
I could do better. No, I would hope you'd be like, I could do better than this. I could do fucking better than this source. I'd be like, yes, you can. You can definitely do better than that.
Oh, The Last of Us 2, yeah. But I wouldn't take on The Last of Us 1 as how I could improve it. Because people loved it.
No, but my point is just that...
everybody hated The Last of Us 2, which would make me confident enough to think I could improve it in the first place.
Yeah,
it is
that's
literally,
what I'm getting at. Like,
it has existed. It's like The Lord of the Rings. It's not The Lord of the Rings existing, which makes it a point of contention that it should be changed. It's the fact that The Lord of the Rings has existed, and so many people have loved it for so many years. That is the proof that you should not change it. It is the mass appeal of an idea and a concept which gives it its value to begin with. It's like why traditional is valued, because over the centuries, enough people have given it enough intrinsic value to prove that there was something about it which should not be changed. It has inherent value, which means that you on your own will not know better than the thing you were originally changing. It doesn't matter my personal opinion of it. It is literally the sheer weight of people behind it which proves that there must be something, even if you can't comprehend what it is, something about it which has value. And The Last of Us 2 doesn't have that. Everyone hates it.
I mean, there are people out there who love it, man. I'm just...
There
not
are
one
people,
of them.
but the sheer
but there's a
mass
lot of
people
retards
behind
out
it,
there. What can I say?
No, I know. I'm just saying
if it's
that
so popular, why did they not make a Last of Us 3?
apparently they said they only will if they can come up with the story suitable, which I hope they never do. Leave it alone.
Please don't come.
Do you think if they were confident that they would have made money, that they wouldn't have made The Last of Us 3?
Oh no, dude! I think this is a Last Jedi situation. They know exactly what's happened. They're not stupid. They fucked up, and they're trying to think of what they're supposed to do. Yeah, because like
It
obviously,
doesn't matter
I
what
think
people say; it matters what their actions are. If
is the thing,
if
man.
they
Like,
thought they were profitable, they would have made one.
the people who praise The Last of Us 2, they talk about all of the intentions of Neil Druckmann's writing, which I'm fully aware of. I'm sure any of you who are familiar with the game, we knew exactly what points he was trying to make. He just did them horrifically badly.
Yep.
By the way, that's exactly the same as TLJ. There's so many connections. It's like, yes, I know what Ryan was trying to do. I understand completely. Oh, Luke Skywalker, the man who couldn't live up to his own legend. He's a failure. It's like, yeah, that sounds like an interesting story devoid of anything to do with fucking Luke Skywalker. But when you apply it to a character that has nothing to do with that idea, it completely gets fucked. In the same way that it's like, Joel's got to get killed, and it's like, let's just make him an idiot. And it's like, you can't do that.
Yeah.
You gotta write it better than that.
It is a shorthand for an argument, really. I mean, if you're speaking to the defender of a particular film or game, and they say either the director had a vision, or the themes, or anything that's not actually in the film itself, to just ideas about the thing, not the thing itself, the chances are they don't really have a clue what they're talking about, and they want to like the thing for entirely different reasons than any normal consumer of art would want to like it. They don't want to like it for its story or its characterization. They want to like it because they fundamentally agree with whatever the theme or the vision or the message happens to be, which is a really deracinated form of artistic appreciation, but it is quite common.
Everyone says it about everything Ryan Johnson makes. You don't understand it.
You don't understand the genius. I love how David Lamplight really got his money's worth out of that question. Like, that kept us going for like 20 minutes. Gavin says, my friend saw you at Atlanta Comic-Con. Super jealous. Well, you should be, because I was awesome that weekend. I'm horrible right now, but I was good that weekend. So, yeah, it's good to meet people. And Watt says, looks like The Last of Us has benched Joel so the strong female teen girl can show him how it's done. I mean, I hate to be the one to say it.
Come on. They're literally fucking 1-to-1 with the game. Calm down. He's going to get back up and kill everybody in the next episode. Don't worry.
I mean, did that, like, refresh my memory? You know the beginning of episode 6 where he's fallen asleep for the night? Like, they made camp, and he wakes up and Ellie's like taking charge and like she's been keeping watch even though he was supposed to keep watch all night. And she's like, yeah, I've done everything that you told me to do, and yeah,
Yeah.
I've been looking out for you. That I'm pretty sure that wasn't in the game.
No, that's not in the game, no.
But I was just like, why did you need to do that? Are you just
Well,
showing that she's so much more competent than him?
No, that's just he does it. He does watch every single night. That's the one night that he slept in, and she woke up and took over watch, and he's taught her how to do it, which I think is good. I want to know more about what he's teaching her. We watch him teach her how to shoot. We watch him. He's taught her all about siphoning gas. He's taught her how like different things work in this world. I think that's good. She should be taught how to like keep watch. Apparently he taught her how to look for tracks. He taught her how to like make sure the area is safe. These are all things that are going to help build their relationship. I'm okay with that.
We haven't really seen him like do that though. Like, or should I say, like, you haven't seen him keep watch night after night, like watching over everything. It's just implied that that's happened.
No, we remember we saw him do it in episode 4 to the point where it
that
fucked
when
him
they
over
were-
sleep because he stayed up both nights, and then
Is that where? Yeah, is that when they're in the forest with the truck thing?
yeah.
Right. Oh, I can't remember. Like,
I'd say that characterization as well makes it much less likely that they will end up deviating from The Last of Us 2, because he is equipping her to survive without him, which you would do. It's perfectly natural. It's explicable within the context of the show, but it's also exactly what you would want to do if you're envisaging going forward, having her as either on her own or as the lead character and Joel out of the picture.
Yeah, and the implication is this happened one time, and they've been together at that point for months.
we just happen to see it, I suppose.
Well, like I said, everything rides on 8 and 9 now, in terms of whether or not I'd recommend this show. And I need to wait until they're out until I can say, because I'm hoping they can squeak away with one season that I think is good enough, because obviously it's going to tank when it hits season 2.
Yeah, no argument here. Nothing better than an aged can't see the rest of that name, says, let's give a quick shout out to Christina Applegate. Yeah, I don't know, let's do it. Christina Applegate,
right.
You're awesome. Well done. Well done for existing. Cannon Valderall says, bars open, lads. Close thing here. I almost dried out waiting. Hail Mauler and Drinker. Cheers to you both. Thank you.
Hey,
Appreciate it. And Aaron Hughes says, been doing a deep dive on older movies I enjoyed in my youth, watching War of the Buttons from 1994. Such a classic. Have you seen it, Drinker? I feel like the name is familiar. Hold on. War of the Buttons. So, yeah, it's a comedy, drama, adventure. Right. It examines the issue of conflict and war, the actions and consequences of violence. Don't think so, now that I'm looking at it. Yeah, it's set in Ireland in the 1960s. Yeah, I don't think so. Or if I have seen it, it's been a long time ago, so I'm sorry, man. I don't know if any of you guys have seen it.
no, I don't think so.
War of the
A couple
Buttons.
people were asking in chat, and I just want to answer, yes, I will tune in to see Fat Geralt in season 2 at least, of course.
Well, yeah, actually.
Everyone will.
The memes that are going to get spawned from that, if it actually gets shown on screen, will
But
be
no way they
glorious.
adapt that one-to-one. No fucking way.
Yeah.
After what happened the first time, that'd be like one of the most celebrated parts of The Last of Us 2. They wouldn't let us have that victory again.
he's the hero that we need.
Yes.
Anyway, like we've been going for like over 3 hours now, so I think we'll probably finish up there. Yeah, we've done quite a few super chats already, so we'll finish up the rest on a catch-up stream. It's what we do here on Open Bar.
Yeah.
But Disparu, Little Platoon, thank you guys for coming in on this. I appreciate you
Anytime.
joining us.
Thank you.
Legends, both of yous.
You're lovely people.
Too kind.
And for the good people of chat, thank you guys. I hope we've provided you with a smidgen of entertainment tonight. Thank you for all the awesome super chats. And thank you to my excellent mods who've done a fantastic job, as they always do. You guys are absolute legends. Yeah, and the next time that you see us will probably be when we do a super chat catch-up stream. But I guess for now, from me, from Mauler, from the rest of the guys on the panel, thank you, and that's all we've got for today. So, go away now.
Bye.
Yeah.